Welcome back to HPP, the podcast that covers college basketball and the NBA draft inside and out. I am Rich Harris. Thank you for joining us again. Last week's episode featured an interview with Toledo forward JT Shoemate. If you missed that episode or any other HPP episode, you can get caught up at hoopsprospects.com. Today is our Christmas special, and Drew is wearing black like a druid or something. But obviously, if I could see him, he's here with me. And we will be discussing the biggest news in college hoops, talking about the prospects whose draft stock is rising or falling. And we will be joined by not one, but two special guests, K-State's Keyontae Johnson and UNC Asheville's Drew Pember. Drew, how are you doing? Are you in the Christmas spirit? And before you answer that, I want to ask you, do you prefer bituminous or anthracite coal?
I'm more of a bituminous.
Okay.
Kind of guy.
All right. I like
that's what this t-shirt color is, actually bituminous black.
I expect to have a lot of anthracite in my stocking this year. So how was your first day on the job?
Good. It was good first day. More or less with my first day, our men's and women's team were wrapping up some tournaments that they were playing in. Our men were down in Chandler, Arizona, and our women's were over at Honolulu in Hawaii playing.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, women's had it was like a quick little holiday, 2-game tournament. Men played 3 games. The men's team actually upset they didn't just upset, they actually dominated the number 24 ranked NAIA school in the country by 30. At one point, it was a 30-point game. So it was actually fun. I mean, obviously I wasn't traveling with the team because they had already been on the road for a while, but
right.
I got to do all the write-ups, recaps, cover the games, do some live tweeting.
Nice.
So it was a good kind of first start to the job, I guess.
Wow. That actually sounds fun.
It was. I got links to watch all the games. So I got to kind of kick back, watch the games. We have a live statting service, so I didn't even have to have like an old notebook and write it down. So I just had on my desktop, I had the game to stream on my laptop. I had it running stats, so as they were going, I could tweet out, so and so.
Now, did they give you synergy or anything like that?
No, it's no synergy. They're potentially going to look at a statting service, like a kind of a more, once we make the official jump to Division II. We're still wrapping up NAIA play,
right?
But once we're in Division II, I believe I don't know if Synergy even covers NAIA basketball, and I
don't either, and I don't know.
I could be wrong about that.
The service I use, I use Synergy and Instat, but I use Instat for clips, and I don't know if they would have NIA. How you say it? NAIA. Yeah. So they're moving to D2. That's interesting. So you might actually have a pro prospect come across to your
every once in a while. Yeah.
Every once in a while. Yeah.
Yeah. They the conference that they're in has a lot of other schools getting ready to make the jump too. And so as they've done the shift, it used to be more or less Northern California, SoCal, and then a few schools in Hawaii and Arizona. So it's kind of like a reverse T. So it's like straight down and then, left and right.
Right.
A lot of the Northern California and even some of the Southern California schools have had really successful basketball programs. And so they're getting ready to make the jump to D2. And from just a competitive standpoint, the men's team and the women's team have both been competitive. And they figured with a lot of the more local schools leaving, it was going to start to become a competitive disadvantage, having to always travel to Arizona, always travel to Hawaii.
Right.
Even going down to SoCal, I mean, it was more of an even split where it was like 3, 1 or 2, and then 3 in Arizona. And so the schools that are replacing the schools that are leaving are mostly in Arizona, New Mexico region. So they just didn't want to always basically have to travel.
I understand. All right, great. Sounds fun. And obviously we'll stay in touch and learn more. I'm interested to learn because, I interact with SIDs all the time, but I just don't know, what their reach is. And there's certain things I've always wanted to ask, but I don't want to ask because I don't want to seem like I'm an idiot.
I'm learning on the fly. It's an interesting time to start because my first day in the office, it was just me and our AD. Because, people are traveling for holidays. One of the other SIDs we have, she was traveling. Our wrestling team, both men's and women's, are nationally ranked. And so they were in a tournament in Reno, I believe, but they were out. So this is an interesting 2 weeks to start because there's really not a lot going on and there's nobody around.
Right.
So
Now their season starts, at least if I'm correct, D2. I graduated from a D2 school, East Stroudsburg, in the Pocono Mountains in Pennsylvania, and we were, typically often ranked. Actually, when I was there, we played D1 volleyball and D1 gymnastics, and were ranked in the top 25 in both when I was there.
God damn.
And I think they dropped both programs. Because
that's so disappointing. That is so disappointing.
Well, I think it was I hate to say it, but I think it was the crunch from the women's where they had to even it out, and we had tons of foreign students in the gymnastics program. But yeah, we would compete in volleyball against teams like Ohio State, Penn State, and same in gymnastics. So. Used to go to a lot of those matches. But anyway, so we got a full day today, so we better move on. We'll start off with our College Hoops Notebook, reviewing the biggest developments of this past week. And we'll start off with one of our teams that we're we have a friend on there in Baylor Shireman, and that's Creighton. And Creighton's Blues continue. The team has now lost 6 straight, the last 3 without center Ryan Kalkbrenner. When we talked, we really didn't talk much about his injury because, I just mentioned it in passing when we got done, because they said, he had non-COVID illness. So you figure, all right, he's got the cold, he's got the flu, and he's going to be back. I thought he'd be back for the Arizona State game. Well, he didn't play in Arizona State and they lost a close one. And then they went to Marquette and they got pounded. I actually turned that game off because I was getting upset, and I felt when you know someone on the team like Baylor, you just hate to see them suffer,
Right.
And
totally.
Someone said to me, I'm not going to say who, but an observer said to me he thought that the team quit. Did you catch that game?
I caught a little bit of it. I didn't really intently watch because I saw that it wasn't really a contest.
Right. Well, it was a contest for a while, but then in the second half. But you've seen this pattern since they've gotten back from Maui. They're often very competitive in the first half, and then they seem to lose steam. Now, the Texas game, which was the first loss, or no, it was the second, because they lost to Arizona in the championship. Then they went to Texas and they lost that. In the Texas game, they actually kind of looked like they were sleepwalking for a while, and then they came on at the end. I don't know if they quit or not. I highly doubt that. I've never seen a Creighton team quit. I know Baylor. He's not a quitter. The Nebhard boys are not quitters. I don't picture them as quitters. I just think we said this in the preseason special. I mean, if anyone goes back and listens, we overemphasized, if any one of the starting 5 got hurt, they were in big trouble. The one thing we didn't emphasize that we probably should have, that Kalkbrenner was the most important, because they really don't have anyone like him. Though I will say, Fred King, the freshman who's been starting for him,
he played well.
Yeah, he's getting better. He's getting better really and better, but he's very limited offensively. Where Kalkbrenner can hit an outside shot. He can hit a mid-range shot. He has nice post moves. And of course he's great running the floor and rim running. Fred King's a freshman. Most people probably didn't even expect him to play a heck of a lot this year.
He was their best player, in my opinion, from the glimpses I saw. Was arguably their best player in that Marquette game. Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. He seems to be getting better and better. So, I'm going to pull up their schedule, and I don't think it gets much easier, unfortunately. How concerned are we at this point? You got to think Kalkbrenner's coming back soon. Yeah, I'm concerned, if only because they've got to deal with, their conference. They've got to see Marquette again. They've got to see UConn twice, who have been playing really well. They've got to play Xavier twice. Villanova is starting to slowly come around. Cam Whitmore's back.
Since Cam Whitmore's played, they haven't lost.
Yeah. So there's like that fear of, in reality, okay, the way they're playing right now, and this is just as it stands, they're going to lose both to UConn the way they're playing right now. Right. I wouldn't be shocked. I wouldn't be shocked if they lost both to Xavier because they've been really competitive and looked really good this year.
Yeah.
I've seen them play my Zags. I saw them play Duke. Like, they've been really sharp. Nova's playing good, so they could split that in theory. They've already lost to Marquette, so it stands to believe that they could lose again. St. John's has been competitive, really, really good. So I'm concerned because I felt like I was looking at their schedule. BYU was a game I would have been, after that loss in Arizona to Texas, I was willing to forgive those back-to-back losses. They were, on the road / neutral site. Both are very good teams. But like Nebraska should have been a win. BYU should have been a win. Arizona State's been a pleasant surprise for West Coast hoops, but talent-wise, should have been a win. And then if you drop one to Marquette, who's been, again, we saw what they did to Baylor a couple of weeks ago, like, who's been very competitive. Okay, I would not be overly concerned. You're going to lose games, but 6 in a row gives you almost no wiggle room. Because if they drop any, in my opinion, of the next 3 against Butler, DePaul, or Seton Hall, any of those, all of a sudden, now their tournament credentials might get called into question.
Right. And they got to win some because, the committee, there's going to come a point where I really don't know. I mean, we had Mike DeCourcy on the show this year. Now, somebody, I was watching a game, I believe, on Sunday night, and somebody said, well, they're going to take into consideration that so-and-so, I think maybe they were talking about Villanova, and they were saying, oh, well, the Cam Whitmore wasn't there at first. And I'm like, yeah, well, according to Mike DeCourcy, they don't really take that stuff into consideration.
You got to win games. Yeah. You have to win games.
So, and I actually, we debated that about whether they should be or not, and actually, hopefully we'll get Mike on the show, maybe late February, early March, and we'll go through this discussion again. But here's what I'm looking at. The next 3 are at home. Butler should win. Butler's not bad, but they should win. But they're going to need Kalkbrenner because Butler's best player is Randy Bates, and he's a force inside. DePaul is awful. DePaul is just so bad. This is like the worst DePaul team in a long time, and that's saying something right there. And Seton Hall is pretty good, but they can't score, but they're very good defensively, but again, winnable. So I think they should win the next 3 all home.
Exactly.
And then on January 7th, they go to Connecticut.
Yeah. See, if they can win the next 3, I think they have to, because you look after those 3 and you're like, okay, then you go UConn, and at Xavier, which, again, the way they're playing, I'm chalking those up as it stands as losses. So if you don't go 3-0 and somewhat right the ship, there's a reality where you've won 2 of your last 9. I mean, if they really fall apart, and let's say Seton Hall just clamps down defensively, and Butler, they don't get Kalkbrenner back, and Butler just has their way inside, and okay, DePaul sucks, so they beat DePaul. But are we looking at a situation where they're 1-9, 1-10, 1-11 in their last 12? And at that point, they'd be out of the tournament unless they went on a crazy run and basically won out and then won their tournament. So I'm concerned. I would say the next 3 games we are at, DEFCON, whatever level. I'll say the second highest DEFCON, because they should go 3-0 based on the talent. If Kalkbrenner's back, hopefully by the end of the holidays, at the latest. But I'm definitely concerned for a team that I thought had Final Four potential if they really clicked, and it looked like it was to start the season. I mean, you picked up neutral site wins over Texas Tech, Arkansas, and you damn near beat Texas and Arizona in neutral / on the road. Early December, I was like, this team's definitely got Elite 8. It still looks like an Elite 8 team, but we'll see.
Right. All right, let's move on to somebody who is not having any trouble. Actually, they're going the opposite direction, and that's UCLA. Won 8 in a row. You were somewhat skeptical because they dropped 2 games. They lost early on when they were 3-2. They lost to Illinois, Baylor back-to-back. Close games, but since then, they've pretty much been rolling, and they won over the weekend or last week. They've won 3 games since we last had a show. But 1 win, they went into Maryland and just beat the tar out of Maryland.
It was embarrassing. I didn't even finish watching the game.
I did not finish that one either. And then they beat Kentucky at Madison Square Garden on Saturday, and they pretty much handled Kentucky too. I don't think that game was too much in doubt.
They said it was a 10-point game, but I think at one point it might have been closer to 15, 16, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, no, UCLA has really come on strong, and I haven't watched too much of them just because I've been trying to, they're West Coast, so I see them all the time anyway. So I was trying to watch other teams around the country that I have, I don't get to watch as often.
Hmm.
But I did watch them when they played Kentucky. Maryland game, I was by halftime, I was on to something else at that point.
Yeah,
Um,
they just destroyed
but I'll give credit. Jaime Hawkins is playing really good basketball right now.
really
I
well.
mean, he was everywhere against Kentucky, and he highlighted, in my opinion, the difference between a guy like a Hawkins and the Kentucky players, someone who's a veteran, played, savvy, not an elite athlete, not a really high level pro prospect versus all those 4 and 5 stars we talk about in Kentucky. But he had them in fits. He scored at will. He had 20 points, grabbed 12 rebounds. He had 4 steals. He was super disruptive. And Amari Bailey didn't even play horrible in that
Yeah,
game.
he played okay against Maryland, I thought, but
Yeah.
yesterday he was pretty quiet.
He was pretty ineffective, but
The other guy's
veterans
Jalen Clark, man. That guy always makes big
comes
plays,
through.
man.
Yep.
And against Maryland, he I thought he was like the key to the Maryland victory because I don't know how many steals he had in that game. I mean, UCLA had a ton of steals in that game, period.
Yeah.
And Maryland just got rattled. And they were just throwing the ball all over the place.
Yeah.
But to me, Clark is just one of those defenders that just, it's rare that you have. I mean, okay, somebody like Auburn center last year,
Walker.
Yeah, Walker Kessler.
Walker Kessler, yeah.
Right. I mean, okay, he obviously could impact the game, but it's rare that you see an on-ball defender, that can actually say, that guy won the game. Well, I felt like against Maryland, his defense like set the tone for them to win,
He's averaging 3 steals a game6 game right now.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, and that's the type of, and that's, you have to, that kind of a perimeter disruptor is just such a luxury. I mean, he's a 6'5", 6'6", really good athlete. And what I like about him is he plays within himself. Like his shooting percentages are so high because he's taking shots that are coming naturally. He's using his athleticism. UCLA last year, I had some issues with guys like Peyton Watson kind of forcing the issue.
Right.
Clark's just letting the game come to him. He's getting his points in transition. He's knocking down threes. He's not taking a super high volume, I believe, but he's knocking down threes when the ball finds him. I mean, he's only taking 2 a game, but he's hitting them at 38.5%. Right. So he's been a really pleasant surprise. And, I've always been kind of back and forth on Hawkes because I should, based on the amount of love I give to Timmy, a guy like Hawkes should be right up my alley. Right. But I've always just felt that like he's smaller, he's even more slow-footed, but the guy's playing really good basketball.
I disagree there. I mean, I don't think he's an overly quick guy, but I mean, defensively, I think translating to the NBA, I think he's going to be considered. I don't think they're going to worry about his defenses as they are about Timmy's.
No, I guess quick foot and he's not going to get out on the break. You're not going to run these crazy transitions with him. But like,
right.
He is. Right, he's agile. Right. He has good agility. He's got good feet. He has good footwork. I'm just saying in terms of the raw athleticism, I guess is more where I'm going. Yeah. He doesn't have the raw athletic ability, but he's been playing really well, and I have to give him credit. I think he's scored 28 plus a couple of times this year. UCLA is on the rise. If Amari Bailey can just get on a rhythm and give them 12, 13 a game, this team's going to be really good because they have a point guard in play who's a veteran, one of the better pure point guards. Hawkins is playing great. Clark is kind of doing a little bit of everything defensively. He's getting offense efficiently. If Amari can live up to that, I think 5-star billing and just get you to that 12 to 13 points a game, this would be a really good team. And I'm willing to kind of, eat crow on them a little bit. I was skeptical because I hadn't played, but they've just beaten 2 really good opponents pretty handily.
Right. If I compare Bailey to Peyton Watson, I think it's night and day. When I watched Peyton Watson last year, you could see the impact he made defensively. He somewhat, he reminded me of Clark in that sense. He definitely could impact the game defensively, but offensively, he looked lost. Bailey, on the other hand, I see him making he's not as good as defender as Clark or Watson. Right. But what I do see with him is he's very gifted offensively, and the shots just aren't falling. But he gets open and he makes he doesn't have any trouble getting open, and he has a pretty shot. He has a nice handle. I think it's going to come around for him. So yeah, and
I'm not out on Bailey at all. I've always my thing with freshmen is I don't need to see it every night, at least not until you get later in the season. I need to see it. And like Nick Smith, I've seen it. Like I've seen games where he's dropped 26. You know, I've seen Donovan, what's his name from UConn, Donovan Clingan. Yes, Donovan Clingan. I've seen it like in small bursts. Like I've seen as a freshman, like, oh, he's impacting the game, whether that's NBA prospect or just to be a good college player. Amari, I've seen it. Like I'm not overly worried because I've seen games where he's gone out and got his, 18, 20. I think he'll be fine. He's just, I think, having to learn how to play with someone else dominating the ball in the Tyler Campbell, a player like Hawkes who's going to get his touch. Like it's just, I think he's just trying to learn how to fit in that hierarchy. I'm not really worried about him because I do agree, Rich. I see him play and he moves really well on the ball, off the ball. He takes, for the most part, good looks. I think he'll be fine.
Yeah. And this team has the potential to even get better, not just from him, but Dylan Andrews is another backup guard who's not getting a lot of playing time, but you can see the potential, there. And also Bona, he's getting regular minutes, which is good for him. And he's unlike, the first couple of games where he kind of looked like a train wreck. He doesn't look like a train wreck anymore. He's starting to get it and he's starting to make defensive plays and so forth and so on. So I think this team's really coming together. So next up is, and we have a user question about this, so maybe I should read that.
Sure.
And we'll kill two birds with one stone here. We had two really good user questions. We're in our mailbag, and the first one is from Kevin, and he says, you guys are pretty harsh on Kansas, a team that's ranked in the top 10. I believe they're number 8 now. He didn't say that. I said that. Back to his quote, he says the Jayhawks might not have a lot of pro prospects beside Dick and Wilson. He's talking about Grady and Jalen. But Kevin McClure, KJ Adams, and DeJuan Harris are excellent college players, especially defensively. So he really didn't ask a question. He wrote in to yell at us, which I think maybe we deserved a little. So Kansas put a whooping on Indiana at their place. So, Kansas is tough to beat there. And, even before that game tipped off, I remember thinking, why the hell did I pick against Kansas at home? I'm like, that is stupid. But the worst part of it was they also lost their starting point guard, Xavier Johnson, who has been a big reason. I'm talking about Indiana. There's been a big reason why that team has played so much better with basically a lot of the same guys from last year. Johnson is not turning the ball over. He's been a pretty efficient scorer. And he went down early, and any hope I think of Indiana had of winning that game went down with him. Now, Jalen Hood Schifino, the freshman point guard, he's really not a pure point guard, and so he's kind of like learning on the job, and it fell to him. And
that's a tough place to ask someone to pick up. That is a very tough place against a tough opponent, against a tough coach to pick up playmaking, ball handling responsibilities on the fly.
And here's the other problem with Indiana is they don't have a lot of good shooters. Tamir Bates hasn't really come on. Hood Schifino hasn't really come on. Their other big freshman, Renault, is very much like Trace Jackson Davis. He looks like another Trace Jackson Davis. Right. So he's not a shooter. They do have a couple like Miller Kopp. He can hit one, but Miller Kopp has his own drawbacks and. So that's the problem with this team. Unless the guards, Bates, obviously they want Johnson healthy again, but Xavier Johnson will never be a good shooter. Just mark that down. So, so Tamir Bates, Hood Schifino, somebody in that backcourt has to start. Both of them really need to be at least like 35% shooters, or this is going to happen to Indiana a lot. So I know I'm not giving a lot of love to Kansas right now. I'm more putting it on Indiana, but our Kevin, the guy who wrote in, actually put it well. I mean, he makes a good point. They have some really good college players who are excellent defenders.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I have to eat crow here a little bit. I was pretty critical of Kansas, and I'll be honest, I'm still not entirely sold on the team. I just don't see a team that can repeat. I don't see a Final Four roster, but I mean, at this point, the way they're playing, they're finding ways to win. I mean, it's hard because I look at their schedule and like the cynic in me, you look and you're like, yeah, they beat Duke, but like Duke's not the Duke that they're not the same team that they have been. So it's like, okay, that's a good win, but they're not great. And you're like, they beat Tennessee or they lost to Tennessee pretty handily. And Tennessee has been far from consistent and great. Like they've been the definition of highs and lows, peaks and valleys, and a little bit more lows and highs. And then outside those two games, you're like, their schedule is not overly impressive. So it's again, you beat Indiana, but Indiana's a flawed team. They're not.
And Indiana lost their point guard in the middle of the game.
And so every time I want to give credit, I just constantly find myself playing the but, like always throwing the but in there. I won't do it. They're better. They're better than I think I've given them credit for. I'll concede that. Grady Dick has been really solid. Wilson's having a monster year in terms of building his draft stock. But I don't know if I can trust a team where almost their entire offense seems centered around two players, a large chunk.
Well, I think we learned though it's better to have your offense build around two players than one. Sure. So I guess they're better than Indiana, which okay, Indiana has one, you have two, but one who's a freshman in Grady and the other one in Wilson, who's having a great year statistically, but you start to dig a little bit deeper and the efficiency does worry me. I think after this game, I think he fell to under 40% or like right to 40% from the field. I was looking it up. So they're better because they do defend. They're well coached. They're tough to beat at home. They have two players that any given night can give you 20 and, have big games. So I'm still maybe not willing to say like they're in the top 10. And I'll tell you right now, I would take Gonzaga I'd take them over Kansas, and Gonzaga's at 11 right now, for just as an example. Right.
I would swap them. And again, I know that's my team, but I'm just saying like if you're going to talk about pure ranking, 8 versus 11.
Oh, I think UCLA is better than Kansas.
I think UCLA is better than Kansas.
And Gonzaga, and they're ranked 13th. So
I would say two of those teams that we just talked about, I would put both those teams over Kansas. But they have one loss. I understand that record matters. I'll concede this. Was it Kevin? They're better than I give credit to, but I'm still pretty confident in saying this team's ceiling is capped probably at the Sweet 16.
Right. Yeah. I will say they do have MJ Rice, who is a top 30 wing, and he really has hardly played. But the one, I think his debut, it was against somebody really not so good, like really small.
Was that the Texas Southern game?
Yeah, something like that. And he had close to 20 points in that.
Yeah.
And I think really, for them, if they had a third scoring option, then now we're talking Final Four. But I don't see any of the guys that Kevin mentioned in his email emerging as that. But I could see MJ Rice emerging as that. North Carolina. We'll move on to them. They've won 3 straight. Are you feeling a bit better about the Tar Heels? I mean, they're getting healthy. Though Baycott says he was quoted over the weekend as saying he's 70%. I think he said, or 75%.
He said he's not 100%. I don't remember what number he gave, but
it was in the 70s, and I think he's exaggerating there because he looked pretty darn healthy
against Ohio State.
Ohio State. So are we feeling safe, or we still got some concerns? I personally still have some concerns.
Yeah, I definitely have concerns. I mean, a lot of it stems not so much to Baycott or Nance. It stems to the backcourt. We've talked about it all. Caleb Love, RJ Davis are the X factors to this team. We know that Nance is going to be able to give you. We know what Nance can do and do well, and he's integrated pretty nicely. Baycott is Baycott. You're going to get your 18 to 25 points and your 12 to 16 rebounds a game, couple blocks. So we know what we're going to get from the bigs. The guards have just been so sporadic. When this team has looked at its best, it's been because ideally both, but at a minimum, one of those two kind of guards is putting pressure on defense. They're being dynamic. They're scoring. I think the Ohio State win, and we talked about it last, Rich. I don't put any stock into the Citadel or Georgia Tech. Neither of those teams are very good.
Right.
So, I was expecting wins there despite the 4-game losing streak. But we had talked about in the last episode that Ohio State was a turning point kind of game. It's a ranked opponent. Ohio State's had some good wins this year. And they went to overtime, which I was like, I would have liked to see them just win a game. Like they keep going to overtime against their best opponents or straight up losing.
Yep.
I would like to see them just win a game in regulation, but they gutted it out. and now they get Michigan. They're actually playing right now, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes,
I think they're playing right now.
They are. Don't look at the score because that's on our 25 predictions of Christmas.
I won't check it, but they're playing right now. And for me, if they win that, now there's legitimate momentum. You beat Ohio State. You went to overtime, but that's a good opponent. Michigan's a solid team with really good players on that team. We talked a lot about Dickinson recently. If they can get those 2 wins and they get that to like a 5-game streak, it starts to look nice. Then you get Pittsburgh, Wake Forest, which I think they should have no problem winning either of those games.
Pitt's turning.
I haven't seen
a little
Pittsburgh
bit of a surprise.
this year.
I haven't seen them either. I just noticed they beat somebody that they shouldn't. You wouldn't think they would have last night. Maybe it was NC State. I forget. But I was like, Pitt keeps on winning some games you didn't think they would win. So
they're trending up. We talked about Creighton trending down and kind of entering that DEFCON desperation.
Right.
I think that the disaster has been averted so far for North Carolina. They picked up a ranked win. Hopefully they can get one over Michigan. And if they can get on a 5, 6, 7-game win streak leading up to that matchup with Virginia, which I think is early January, if I'm not mistaken. I think Virginia is their next big game. They can win basically out till that game. I think they'll have built enough wiggle room for them to breathe a little bit easier. But Baycott's back. He looked dominant against Ohio State. And, I'm a Nance guy. I just need the guards to give me what they gave me in the tournament last year, just more consistently. And we talked about,
shot selection,
all of it,
sharing the ball. They were one of the before the Citadel game, they were like near the bottom of 300 and some teams in D1 basketball in terms of assist percentage.
And we've talked about that over and over again. I mean, they have full games. They go a full 40-minute game and have like 9 assists.
Right.
And that's unacceptable.
You know who's really picked it up in the assist department is Caleb Love. Still haven't seen Davis do it, but at least Davis isn't taking so many crazy shots and he's actually hitting his shots. But the other thing I liked about the Ohio State game was Caleb Love was driving it in there. You got to mix it up. You can't just, I know you could do step backs and all that nice stuff, but they're not high percentage shots, and if you want people to give you those shots, so you don't have to do a step back move to shoot, you got to drive it in there a little bit. And
Absolutely.
They were doing that. So that was a good sign. All right, staying in the ACC, and actually the rest of our notebook is about the ACC. Duke is still waiting for Dariq, Whitehead, and Dereck Lively to emerge. And they actually lost last night at Wake Forest without both 5-star freshmen who are out with this non-COVID thing that's been going around. I assume it's a flu because I personally caught it and it took me about 3 weeks to fully recover. So it's not fun. So maybe they even miss another game or two, kind of like Kalkbrenner.
Yep.
But so what do we think about Duke? Because they looked pretty flat last night, and I think personally, they're just not going to do much unless Whitehead or Lively emerge as a legitimate, scoring threat.
I'm pretty out on Lively at this point to the season. My brother's a diehard Duke fan. That's his team, has been for a decade now, and he's back. So we watched the game together, and it was kind of interesting to pick his brain and talk because he's more emotionally invested, and he's really, really low on Lively's just intensity and motor. You see the talent; it's there. I mean, you look at the build, you're like, okay, there's the foundations are there, but I think just mentally, I just don't think he's ready to compete at this level night in and night out when you're going to have 22-year-old grown men coming at you every night going, this is the last time I'm playing high-level basketball, so I'm coming at you every night. I just don't see the motor. And, I think Flipowski is probably, as of right now, is probably their best player.
Yeah.
But, the Wake Forest game, I just feel this, like, what I liked about him earlier on when I had seen him was looked like there was an aggressiveness. He was attacking the basket in terms of just rebounding with, an aggressiveness about him offensively, securing defensive boards, getting in there, mixing it up, looking to score at the rim. And last night he had 6 rebounds, which, I mean, for a 7-footer, you're like, isn't great, especially with Lively not being out there. That's just one other big they're down.
Right.
And he settles for threes too much. He was 0 for 6 last night. Yeah. He took 14 shots. Almost half of his shots were from 3, and he didn't hit one. And I'm just like, at that point, he had 5 turnovers. At that point, I would have loved to see him just say, I'm going to the block and give me the ball, or I'm going to get easy offense. I'm going to crash the glass hard, and I'm going to get putbacks. I just feel like this team, and that's the risk you run when you have all these freshmen, is I just feel like they have not collectively come together as a unit, and individually they're just kind of either too timid, they don't have the right mindset, they're not playing to their strengths. And, maybe that has to do with in high school. I'm sure Kyle did whatever he wanted on a basketball court. And he took 8-9 threes a game, pulled down 15 rebounds, did whatever he wanted. It doesn't fly here. I hadn't seen Wake Forest. And, Cameron Hildreth had his way with them. Scored at will, grabbed 9 rebounds.
The guys from England. The guys from England. They don't even know what basketball is usually.
Had his way with them. And, their entire Wake Forest starting lineup was in double digits. There was a lack of intensity on defense. Again, offensively, it just seemed to kind of be this timid nature of all the, the high level prospects. I get it. Again, you didn't have Lively, you don't have Dariq Whitehead, but I just I'm concerned about this team. I think this team will continue to drop, and I think the reality is Duke is at their peak power, super talented, but I think the reality is Duke's going to be a team that hovers in that 25 to 20 range the rest of the year, kind of as their ceiling.
Right.
I just don't see enough consistently. I'm out on Lively for this year. I think he has to come back.
The guy is just, he'll give you blocks and dunks. That's it. That's all he can do.
And if you're going to do that, though, I would love to, if he was pulling down 14 rebounds a game, giving you 10 points on putbacks, crashing the glass and blocking 4 shots a game, I'd be like, you know what, man, you're not NBA ready in terms of full skill set, but what you're doing right now, you're dominating. You are dominating. And he's not even doing that. He's not there. He's led in rebounds 1 game this season for them.
Right.
Not going to cut it.
And Whitehead, who we know has an all-around game, and we're not worried about that, but damn, we haven't seen it put together. But again, he is coming off an injury.
Right.
He did not play for a long time.
He didn't touch a basketball for 2 months, I believe. More like he wasn't playing for 2 months.
Yeah. So I mean, we may not see the best of him this year either.
Yeah.
I think Duke fans should be worried. I really do.
They're primed for a big letdown this year. Though, if they get into the tournament, in my opinion, they are primed for I would not be shocked to see this team because they're not going to be a high seed. So they'll probably be in those middle tier seeds where they're going to have to go play another solid middle tier team. I would not be shocked if this team got bumped in the first round. Just being completely honest, depending on how good their seed. If they are not a top 3 seed, which they will not be unless they go on some tear, it doesn't look good.
Yeah. All right. So another ACC team was undefeated going into the weekend, and now they've dropped 2 straight. And that's Virginia. They lost. I wouldn't say they were beaten badly, but it was convincing. Convincing victory when Houston went into their place and handled them. The game really wasn't in doubt, though it was close. Right. And then you could probably say the same thing about last night's game where they went to Miami and Miami pretty much had the lead the whole way, though it was ultimately close. So your thoughts, are you concerned about Virginia?
I'm not really concerned. Keyontae Clark had a pretty rough outing last night against Miami. And if you really look at this game, they scored 40 points in the second quarter. They actually thoroughly outplayed, if you want to look just offensively, outplayed Miami. This game boils down to the first 5 minutes. I was watching, this is another game I watched with my brother. It was 12-2 at about the 15-minute mark. And I mean, at that point, if you want to look at the margin of victory, they just could not overcome the fact that they basically spotted them a 10-point lead and were playing, from behind. I'm not really overly concerned. Again, Keyontae Clark had a tough night. Franklin, the other guard, Armand Franklin, the senior, I don't think made a shot.
No, he did not.
He didn't. And the fact that this game was, they lost by 2, and you had 2 starters combined to go 2 for 17. And Shedrick took 2 shots and made 1. Wow. So, we had talked about Reese. I thought Reese played a really good game for the most part. He didn't score a lot, but he almost had a triple-double. He's been injured,
but in both games, we haven't seen him recapture, the game that he played hurt. We talked about when we had him on Stock Rising, and we really haven't seen him hit that mark since, that game, the game where he was limping around against Florida State. And every game since then, he has been subpar, though he was one of their better players last night. Here's what I'm concerned about. These last two games, this Virginia team, which we've been saying is different than the last couple of years, looked exactly like last year's team. Keyontae Clark, 2 for 10. Amon Franklin, 0 for 7.
Yeah.
And then the freshman McKinley, 1 for 9.
Yeah.
Okay, that is looking. And Franklin. We had him on Stock Rising. When he was really hot, and he's still shooting 40% from 3, but he's also shooting about the same from the field.
Big red flag to me.
Yeah, and so he's lucky he didn't get on Stock Following this week, and we just had to shorten the list. By the way, Jaime Jaquez, you should have been on Stock Rising too, but we wanted to keep it short because we have 2 guests. But yeah, this team, to me, Reese Beekman's their best player, and he hasn't been 100%, and now they're starting to look like Virginia of last year. Franklin has to get his ass in gear, and Clark cannot be the star of this team.
Yeah. I agree. There's red flags. I still think this is a good team. I mean, based on the fact alone that, I mean, if they give up a 5-12 run, which is still not good in the first quarter, they end up winning this game. So I like to see that the defensive intensity was still relatively there. I mean, Miami has an potentially explosive offensive core. They held them to 66, and that's with giving up. I mean, they gave up 36 in the first quarter, held them to 30 in the second or first half.
Right.
So I still think there's building blocks for this team to be successful. I'm going to chalk this one up to you played Houston, who for the first month of the season was the number 1 team in the country and was kind of looking to pick up a big win because they had lost to Alabama. So I think they were kind of out for blood. They probably had this game circled as a kind of a rebound game. And then Miami, again, ACC rival who's been playing well and is super talented. I will give Virginia the pass. As it stands, I'm not overly worried. But again, if Keyontae Clark continues to be on a disappearing act and Ahmad Franklin, continues this up and down offensive roller coaster, you're putting more and more pressure on Beekman, and he's clearly not 100%.
Right.
And this kind of scenario for them could be a problem, and this could lead to them dropping a game or 2 that they're not supposed to. And now the pressure ramps up tenfold.
Right. See, Keyontae Clark was playing a lot off the ball when Beekman was 100%, and people were not focusing him, so he was getting a lot of open shots. But just because of his sheer size, he has trouble when he's guarded. He has trouble at the rim. He has trouble at the mid-range. He has trouble at the 3 because it's not always easy for him to get a shot off. Okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so he's, you don't want him to be your primary scorer. He can't be your primary scorer.
He can't be. Yeah.
So now, but when Beekman and Franklin are hitting, that team becomes really tough because Gardner is a good interior scorer. And the freshman, or not the freshman, the sophomore center, Caden Shedrick. No, Shedrick.
No, not Shedrick. Yeah, Shedrick.
Yeah, I mean, Cafaro is
he's their backup. He's their backup. He's the backup center.
But Shedrick is the one who has promise,
Yes.
And he is still developing his game, but he still gives you. They have enough inside, as long as those guys are hitting. But you know what? If the guys aren't hitting inside and your interior guys aren't really, grade A players, you got trouble,
Yeah.
So, all right. So the next topic for our notebook is, Arkansas freshman Jordan Walsh scored a career high in a win over a solid Bradley team on Saturday. And tonight, the Razorbacks take on one of the best teams in the Big South, UNC Asheville. And our first guest, Drew Pember, leads the Bulldogs in scoring, averaging nearly 20 points per game. So today, our special guest is UNC Asheville's Drew Pember, the reigning Big South Defensive Player of the Year, and also a All Big South First Team selection. This seeson, Drew is averaging 19.7 points, 9.5 rebounds, 2.9 blocks per game, while shooting 50% from the floor, 42% from deep, 84% from the foul line. and there's more. He ranks first or second in the Big South for points per game, rebounds per game, blocks per game, and he's fifth in the nation for blocks per game. Free throw percentage, and he leads the country in free throws made. Did you know that? You lead the country?
Coach Morrell actually told me that last night. I didn't know that.
Okay. And you're either first or second. I believe you're first in all these categories in the Big South. Player efficiency rating, win shares, and plus minus. So how you doing today? Our finals over. Have you gotten over that buzzer beater on Saturday? What a crazy end to a game.
So yeah, finals have been over for around a week and a half, 2 weeks maybe. We're preparing for Arkansas right now. I've kind of got over the buzzer beater a little bit already. It was cool, but you got to move on to the next game. And
Right.
the team bailed me out because I hit a lucky shot. I didn't really do anything. Coach Dixon drew up the play and Doc made the pass. So I just happened to hit the shot. Doc was great in the ETSU game. We had a lot of guys that were fantastic in that game. I wasn't very good, so thankfully they had my back in that regard. So we'll watch film on that today, and then we'll keep pushing forward.
Okay, you're being slightly modest because you did make the assist to when you were down by 3. You pulled them within 1, but then I think they went back and hit a 2. Then they fouled one of your guards. I forget which one, and he missed or made the first, missed the second, and then you got the tip, which went off ETSU, and then of course from there set up the buzzer beater.
Yeah, so I passed it to Nick. He got the dunk. We messed up with defensive coverage. They got a layup
Right
down. Trent got fouled. He made the first one, and then he missed the second one. It went out on them, and then that's what. Yeah, you're right.
Was that misplanned?
No, I don't know. I don't think it was. No.
Okay, because the announcers were saying, "Oh, they're going to miss this on purpose, but I wasn't sure because it looked like it was a legit attempt.
No. We never try to miss free throws on purpose.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to tell you what a small world this is. First of all, you were the only. I've been doing this since 2017, and people always say, "Yeah, you got to go look at this guy. Got to go look at this guy," but you're the only person. Since 2017, I've had 2 separate people come up and say, "Hey, you got to go look at this guy." Of course, once somebody says it, I already looked at you, but I'll rewind. I have a friend who works for a big stat company, and his job is no longer. He's doing something different with them, but it was to basically, you know what tagging video is?
Yeah.
All right, so he tagged video for them, and one day I get a text from him. Hey, you got to check out this guy at Asheville. His name's Drew Pember, and so I did, and then that was last year, and then this year, one of the guys who works with us says, "You ever hear of Drew Pember? He scored 49 or 40 points on UCF. I used to coach him in junior high." And his name is Cam Real. So is Cam pulling my leg, or did Cam really coach you? He's not much older than you.
Cam. That name sounds so familiar. I don't remember. Junior high is middle school, correct?
Yeah, I think he coached you like 7th or 8th grade. And I'm sure he wasn't the head coach because he's not much older than you.
That was so long ago. I don't remember.
He's going to be crushed. He's going to be crushed.
What's his last name?
Real? And it would have been in Knoxville.
Yeah. I'm trying to think.
He's actually a Jersey boy who had moved down there to go to school at Tennessee.
I don't remember.
All right.
I if I saw his face, I'd probably recognize him, but I don't. That name isn't familiar.
Right. Well, God bless you. Now we have all kinds of material to endlessly tease him because he claims he knows you.
that name does not sound familiar. Like I feel bad because I feel like
no.
Me, but I don't.
Maybe I misunderstood, but I know he said he crossed paths with you. Maybe he crossed paths with you as a student. Maybe that's what he did, but I thought he said he coached you. I didn't get it either because of the age difference. I mean, there isn't much, he's maybe 4 years older than you, know. So all right, so we'll move on. So let's talk about Knoxville. You started there, you grew up there, and you go to Tennessee. Obviously why you went to Tennessee is pretty obvious, I would think, but how did you end up at Asheville?
A lot of different reasons, a lot of really good reasons. So Trent, who was my high school teammate and my middle school teammate, known him, my best friend, grew up with him. He's basically like a blood brother to me. He was a big reason. I had a conversation with Woody, who recruited me. We talked on the phone for, I don't know how many times we talked on the phone. We talked on the phone from it could vary from 5 minutes to 2.5 hours. We just talked about life. It wasn't even really about basketball. It was just, how are you doing? What's your life like? What do you like to do? Just questions like that. And then Coach Morrell got into the mix. And then the way that we play here fits my play style perfectly. We run 5 out, we get up and down, we press, all that type of stuff. And that all went into some of the reasons that I wanted to come here. And then there was Tajon, I knew him prior. He went to Oak Ridge, so I kind of knew him. And then BJ Marable, who went to Grace, I knew him a little bit. And so I already knew 3 guys on the team. So coming in, it was already, you already felt like the chemistry was already there. And then whenever I met like the full coaching staff here and met everyone else, it just clicked. It felt comfortable, normal. There was no red flags. It was all just one big family, and that was very. Who wouldn't want to be in that type of environment? It was
right.
It was really fun. The coaches are really close with my family, so there's a lot of reasons just outside of how we play on why I decided to come here.
Right. Also, a beautiful part of the country. Yeah,
it is. It's the population is a lot smaller than Knoxville for obvious reasons, but the mountains are. We've gone on some team hikes. We've gone. We've taken the scenic routes and all that stuff. So it's been fun. It's been a different experience for me, but it's been good. I tell people all the time when I go back home, they're like, "Oh, Asheville's been full effect," because when I came here, I had short hair and no beard, and now I've got. Now I've got all this hair, and I got a beard, and all that stuff. So that's been kind of the joke whenever I go home to see my family and friends, and they kind of like they bring that up a little bit.
Yeah, I've actually seen you mess with your hair during a game.
Yeah, I'm so. God, my sister gets on me all the time. And even my girlfriend tells me like that I'm doing my ponytail wrong and I need to do it this way and that way. And I'm just like, as long as I can get it in a ponytail, that's all. Coach just wanted me to get it out of my hair, and I've done that. So
enjoy it while you have it, because when you get to be my age, you start to lose it. So.
Yeah. Well, my dad hasn't. My dad's 50. He hasn't started losing his hair yet.
Oh,
so
good.
I might be on his genes might.
Yeah.
Bless me in that regard.
Yeah, well, that'd be excellent. All right, so let's move on to this season. As we said, you started off with a bang. 40 points and a win over UCF, which is a very good team. You're now 8-4, and as you mentioned, you're headed toward Fayetteville on Wednesday. How would you describe the team's mindsets? The state of things. Are you happy with you are? You wish you a couple of moments you want back, or how confident are you? Are you where exactly where you thought you might be at this point?
Obviously, there are a couple of games we wanted to get back. We got punched in the mouth pretty good. Start of some games, I think Central we got punched pretty good. EKU we got punched as well. Obviously, we're a very confident group. We've got guys working out every single day. We all work on our craft, and then going into practices and stuff, you rep things so many times that it just becomes second nature and natural to you and to the team. So I'd say we're confident going into this game on Wednesday, and we're confident going into conference because we've learned a lot of things over the non-conference that. There's certain things you can't do in order to win games, because they're going to cost you at the end of the day. Like turnovers are a big thing for us right now. I'm turning the ball over at an extremely high clip, and I'm not particularly happy about it. And we just got to continue to rebound the ball well. That was one of our biggest weaknesses last year. I think we were dead last in the conference last year in rebounding, and I think we made a dramatic improvement there. We'll continue to do that. We work on that every day. So I'd say I wouldn't say we're right where we want to be, because there's always room for improvement. There's always room for growth. Growth is a big word around here. There's not good and bad. There's good and growth. So that's one of the things that Coach Morrell's really good at, is like, okay, this is an area of improvement that we need to grow in. We need to learn and move on from, and that's just kind of what we've been doing. And then he also harps on being 1% better today than you were yesterday. So we take that to the heart, and we keep it pushing.
That's a great statement. There's good and growth. Seriously, I love that. So I know you guys like to run, and you're playing, and I'm just specifically talking about Wednesday's game. I was just curious, and when you play, I've seen Arkansas a ton this year, and they are really athletic. But they're not very big. So in that sense, you match up with them well, height-wise. They lost their most talented, Trevin Brazil. They lost their most talented big guy, who's your size. So, but when you face an athletic team like that, do you say, we're going to approach this the same way we always approach the game, or do you tweak your style and say, you know what? We gotta do something a little different for these guys, or we're not gonna match up well.
No, I mean we do. I mean we do what we do. That's it's what we do is kind of our slogan and our motto. Obviously they're top 10 program in the country for a reason. They've got a couple lottery picks on the board, and that, I mean, they're tremendously talented. So I mean, going into that game, it's gonna be a fun game for us. We're gonna learn a lot about ourselves, and we're just gonna keep doing what we're doing. We don't change what we do. We always try to be the aggressors for 40 minutes. That's a big thing for us too. So I mean, to say that we change our game plan for teams that are athletic, we don't do that. I mean, obviously.
Well, I wasn't saying teams in general, but this team on your schedule is going to be like, in another category. I mean, you play Dayton, you play UCF, but they're not Arkansas.
I get what you're saying. No, we won't change. We won't change much. I mean, like I said, they're an incredibly talented group. Coach Musselman's great. Even from when I was at Tennessee, watching them play was good. I've always had, respect for them and their program. And so, hopefully we get that same respect back and we get their best, because we wouldn't want, anyone to treat us any differently. So that's what we're going to try and do going into Wednesday.
Okay. All right. So for someone who's going to focus a little more on you now, for someone who's never seen you play, how would you describe your game?
I'd like to consider myself to be pretty unselfish. I know I take a lot of shots, but I can't do that without getting my teammates involved. They stretch the floor, they cut for me, they do all these things for me that nobody sees. Well, it's okay, Drew's scoring, 20 points a night. Well, you guys don't see the back screen that Tay sets, the rebounds that Nick's getting. Like nobody sees that. So yes, you can, say, okay, this is the 6'10" guy that can stretch the floor and dribble and do all of these things and has all of these intangibles. But at the end of the day, like, you guys don't know what my teammates do for me and that I try to do for them. I mean, I'd consider myself a good teammate. Hopefully my teammates would say the same, but I can't do it without them. I can't play 1-on-5.
Right.
It's 5-on-5. I've got Trent, Caleb, Alex. I mean, I could go down the line. I could do all of that. My teammates are phenomenal. they've put me in a spot where I need to be able to lead and, do what I've worked on, and they trust me to do that. So, and I trust them. So to describe my game, I would just say that, I'm a team player. I try not to get outside of myself, and I don't want to sound arrogant and cocky when I say that, but that's kind of the approach that I take. I don't try and do too much. I just, I just do what's asked of me and what my teammates need. And that's kind of been my mindset going forward from, even from when I transferred last year. Obviously my role has changed from going to, not playing and being a support player, bench player, and cheering those guys on to, being the, I guess, quote unquote featured player, star player, whatever you want to call it. But I've adapted to that role. My teammates have allowed me to do so and given me the opportunity to do that. So I'm grateful to them, and I'm thankful for them, because I can't do it. At the end of the day, I can't do it without them.
Right. And the end of the Saturday's game was a perfect example how everybody chipped into that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So would you say shooting is your best skill?
I want to say that, but the more that I talk to Coach Morrell, he says my ability to get to the free throw line is probably
yes, he's leading
my biggest. And
right,
I probably have to agree with him. Of course, who wouldn't want to say shooting is their best? Best. I take a lot of pride in blocking shots and moving shots. That's kind of that's something that I pride myself in. But if I had to choose one, I would probably agree with Coach Morrell and say it's the ability to get fouled and get to the free throw line, which I've been doing a terrible job of as of recent. But there's still room for improvement there.
All right. So I'm going to bring it back to shooting because you're making 84% of your free throw shots. So it doesn't, you can get fouled a lot, but if you don't knock them down, it doesn't matter. So you are doing that, and you do have a nice stroke from deep. So as a 6'10" guy, were you always 6'10", or how did you develop such a pretty outside? No, I mean, there are a lot of guys that come into college basketball who are your size. I mean, look at Drew Timme, and he can't shoot like you. I mean, I'm not knocking Drew Timme. We love Drew Timme. I picked him to be player of the year this year, but he can't shoot like you. And so my question is, how does someone your size, how did you develop that? Was it a late growth spurt, or just something you always like to do?
Well, so I had my growth spurt in high school. I went from 6 foot to 6'6" from my freshman to my sophomore year. And so I'd been working on guard stuff, shooting. That's all I could do in middle school. Like, couldn't guard a trash can, dribbling off my foot, like all this stuff. All I could do was shoot. You can ask Trent. So, I continued to do that. I think around when I started growing taller, I had to change my shot because I was shooting like Sean Merritt. Like, it was all like from my hip.
Yeah.
I tried to develop, a higher shot with a higher release. And as I got taller, of course, the release point just got higher and higher and higher.
Right.
And when I was at Tennessee,
I also noticed you have a nice quick release.
Oh, so I was about to get into that. So when I was at Tennessee, Lucas Campbell was one who was a GA. I think he's got a different role there now. He went to ETSU, but he's back at Tennessee. And we would watch clips of Klay Thompson and Duncan Robinson shooting no dip shots. So you catch it, like instead of bringing it down, you just catch it and shoot it. And so I worked on that for 2 years of just catching it and just not dipping, just shooting, countless shots. And, he would tell me, like, even if I dipped it just a little bit, it was like, that shot doesn't count. So for, for workouts and, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of shots, I worked on, that quick release. And when I got here, Woody was like, there's no point in you having to rush your shots because you already shoot over everybody.
Right.
And so I've tried to find a balance of when I need to get it off quick and when I can, take my time and really get into it. So it's been a process. I've been working on it a ton. I worked on it with Woody a lot during the summer. I still do. So that's been.
For those who don't know, Woody is assistant head coach Taylor.
He's an assistant coach.
Right.
I say Woody. That's just that's just
right.
what I Coach Taylor. Yeah.
Okay.
But he's been. We've just been getting thousands of shots up, and it's been really good.
All right. So Nick McMullen is about you can correct me if I'm wrong, but to me he's about the only guy that gets significant minutes that's of say above 6'6" on the team. You and him.
Yeah.
Two bigs or the two bigs.
Mm-hmm.
So in that sense, you're whether you like it or not, you're kind of forced. And I talked to JT Shoemate. I don't know if you know JT, who plays at the University of Toledo, has a similar game to you. And basically, so whether you like it or not, you kind of have to play that big man role at times. Do you think by playing that role, is there anything that we don't see on the court that you say, well, you know what, in a different situation, if I played with Zach Edey or somebody like that, I could be doing, I'm not saying complain about UNC Asheville, but are there certain things in your game that you just don't get to display because of your role with the team?
No, not at all. Because when Nick's in, I'm playing the 4, and when he's not in, I'm playing the 5.
Right.
So I'm able to display I'm able to display everything. Even when I do play the 5, I can still pop, I can still roll. That's what's within our offense. There's not.
You brought that up. Do you think that that's something that I thought personally, all right, I'm going to get to the point instead of beating around the bush. I thought you could be used in the pick and pop situation more often, but it doesn't fit necessarily with your style of offense.
Well, no, it does. We've got Coach Morrell's given us the option to do either or, and it kind of that transitions within our flow. It's different because some teams, they don't put the 5 on me and they put a guard.
Right.
So now if I do pop, it doesn't really do any, it's not really going to do much. I can't get the guard downhill. I can't get, shooters coming up behind me. So Coach Morrell's been telling me to roll. And if I get a post up, then I'll catch it and, we'll play from there. But to say that, it's been limited with Nick being in or, whoever, that's not the case at all. It's very, Coach Morrell has never told me or anyone not to be aggressive and not to shoot a certain type of shot.
Right. And one thing I noticed, I was just reviewing some of your clips this morning. I wasn't watching a full game, but I was just looking at clips. And I was like, damn, I don't know if there's a guy in the country who gets they get it right up in you, and that's their the teams are focused on you, and usually they do put a smaller guy on you, not too small, it's not but you know what I'm saying, and they get right up in your shirt, and I'm like, it's no wonder you lead the nation in free throw attempts. So yeah, the tough way to make a living.
Yeah, it is different because I see double and triple teams a lot, which I've been so bad at passing out of double teams, which is something that I'm starting to focus on a lot more. Just making a lot earlier reads rather than late. So that's and I try. A lot of people don't, I never really have a loud amount of points because I shoot so many free throws. And that comes within the offense. When I catch it in the post, my teammates cut for me and all this stuff. So I got, I have easy reads to just be able to just throw it to them and, get them shots. Because I do see, so many people guarding me at once that I'm able to, try and get these other guys shots. But if I can't pass out of a double team, I can't get them shots. So that's kind of what I've been focusing on and need to improve on at that.
Right. And that was going to be my next question. You brought up turnovers. And, if anyone looks at your stat line, the one thing that you haven't improved on this year is they've gone up, but all your other numbers have increased tremendously. Not that you had an excellent season last year, but I mean, you're just taking it to a new level this year. But the turnovers do stand out. So you also just mentioned the double team passing. Are those the two areas? And are you really? I mean, you just said you want to improve as a double team passer. Turnovers. What do you think's going on there?
There's so many things. I'm rushing a lot of my shot attempts. I'm not getting to 2 feet enough. I'm not being strong with the ball in double teams. I'm waiting too long. There's a lot of reads that I'm missing in the corners. So if I drive, a defender helps over, I got to be able to kick it to the corner. I'm rushing a lot of things that I need to slow down on. I've watched film with, Coach Morrell and Woody and, all the coaches so I know what I have to do. I have to do it.
Right.
And it's easier said than done because,
right.
I gotta be able to make, all these reads and all these passes. And if I don't do that, then, they result in turnovers, which are points for the other team. And, it is something that, keeps me up at night. I'm not happy about it. There's nothing I'm boasting about, having so many turnovers, but that is definitely the biggest area that I need to improve, from, Wednesday to the rest of the season. I have to get those numbers down.
Right. Well, you know what? The first big step you have to take is recognizing where you need to improve. So you're already more than halfway home. So the big South, looks wide open this year to me. I know Longwood's the favorite, but they're not setting the world on fire. The team last made the NCAAs. Last year you made CBI, which was the first time you were in postseason, I believe, in 4 years. Last time you made the NCAAs was 2016. Is that the goal this year? Get into the big dance, or is it to win the regular season, or both? What are you thinking here?
I mean, I feel like that's such a vague question because what team doesn't want to go to the dance? What team doesn't but we don't. That's so far from now. We've got so many things, we've got to work on and continue to be able to get to that point. It's just, day by day is just, if you think about,
right.
We have to win this game and this game and this game. And then that causes stress and pressure. And, that's not something that anybody needs. So we don't. It just goes back to the being 1% better today than we were yesterday.
Right.
And that's kind of the way that we've taken it. Try not to think too far ahead. I mean, of course it's hard to say that because what college player doesn't want to go to the big? Obviously that is the goal. But there's so many. I mean, it's a marathon, not a sprint. Everyone hears that.
Right.
So it's. Win our next game is our biggest.
I think that's a great answer. I was just saying, I guess what I was saying was, some people would say, I'm not even going to talk. I don't want to talk about the NCAAs. We just want to win the conference regular season title, or we just want to win, the regular season, the conference tournament championship. One step at a time. And that's basically what you said. So, and that makes sense. Just do the best you can and work the hardest you can. And then what happens.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't mean to pontificate, by the way. You're just easy to talk to. All right. So my last question is, what does Drew Pember do for fun, to relax, outside of basketball, outside of school?
Oh, man. What college player doesn't play video games?
That's the answer I get. That's a 9 out of 10. That's the answer I get.
My mom, I'm gonna go home for Christmas, and my mom hears this, she's gonna be so mad at me. But that's just what I do. I watch TV. I watch cartoon shows and anime. I just do the normal stuff a college basketball player does. All my teammates play the game. That's just kind of what.
Are we talking when you say play the 2K?
The game meaning PlayStation. That's just
okay.
Kind of the slang that we use, or that people use, like after practice we'll be like, oh, you're getting on the game. That's what
okay.
That's what we'll say, and and everyone knows kind of what that means. That's pretty much what I watch college basketball. That's don't really do a lot outside of basketball in school.
Right.
I hang out with my teammates.
Well, there's probably not a heck of a lot of time to do much else.
I mean, there's not a ton of time, but it's yeah. I mean, that's all I do. I mean, my mom's gonna hate my answer, but I just play video games. So,
all right. What's your major, by the way?
finance.
Finance. All right. So you might end up in my neck of the woods. I'm not too far from
Who knows?
New York City.
Who knows?
Though I am a mountain boy. I grew up in a Pocono Mountain region, and I'm still around there. So anyway, Drew, it was a real pleasure talking to you, and I thank you so much for your time. Have a beautiful Christmas and happy holidays, and maybe you come back and visit us after the season.
Hey, whatever you guys need, I'll be willing to do it.
All right, great, Drew. Say hi to Mom before you go. All righty. I'm very excited to have Kansas State forward Keyontae Johnson join us today. After sitting out most of the previous 2 seasons at Florida, Keyontae has bounced back in a big way this year and is currently averaging 17.8 points, 6.8 rebounds, 2.3 assists, and 1.6 steals per game with outstanding shooting splits. He leads the Big 12 in effective field goal percentage and ranks in the top 4 of the conference for player efficiency rating, win shares, and plus minus. Keyontae, how are you doing today? Our finals over. You ready for Christmas?
Yeah, finals over. I'm doing good. We're on Christmas break. Just finished practice. So everything going good.
Great. So coming off a big win on Saturday against a surprising Nebraska squad, and you scored 23, grabbed 11 boards, had 4 steals. Was that the best game of your season so far for you?
No, I think probably when we played Nevada in the Cayman Islands, that might have been one of those, or at Butler. So I don't know. It's up there though, definitely up there.
Right,
so
right. A couple Saturdays ago, it was a big day at the school. I'm talking about the Wichita State game. I was curious. Did you guys wonder what was going on at halftime when the crowd started going crazy?
Yeah. I mean, we heard it in the locker room, but we didn't know like what was actually going on out there and what like going on. So, I mean, we still don't know to this day what happened.
You don't?
No, I don't.
It was the football team. The football team had won the Big 12 championship.
Yeah, we watched the football game and seen on one, but I guess they had came back in time.
They had walked.
They
walked
had
onto
came
the
back
court.
right when we was going to the locker room. We had dapped them up, but we
Yeah.
didn't know they was going on the court right there. We thought they were just sitting there like cheering us on and stuff.
Right. It was a really cool scene. And then, of course, you won the game over Wichita too.
Yeah.
So that was great.
That was a good little dub for both of us.
Yep. So for our listeners who are not familiar with your story, and I don't know, this is probably not fun for you to relive, but you collapsed on the floor during the Florida State game, December 22nd, 2020. And for someone like me who actually I was watching that live at the time, and for someone like me who's old enough to actually watch Hank Gathers go down live as well, it was a horrible thing to watch, and of course horrible for you, of course. So afterwards it wasn't easy to get a lot of information. It was kind of hush hush, and we really hadn't, at least personally, it was tough for me to get much knowing what was going on with your life. So what basically did go on during those last 2 years of Florida? What were you allowed to do, and ultimately what made you leave Florida and come to K-State?
For the last 2 years, I basically was just trying to figure out what doctors would clear me to play. I didn't get cleared to play at Florida. That's why I got suspended for playing like any kind of sports there. So there wasn't, even if I got cleared, I wasn't allowed to play sports at Florida. So I was forced to transfer basically. And that's what made me enter my name in the transfer portal. But while I was there going through the process, I was just doing a lot of doctor's appointment. I couldn't work out for 2 years. Couldn't get my heart rate up or do any like activities with the team, no running. So I haven't ran in 2 years until I got to Kansas State. So everything that I did here was like my first time basically like just first time doing workouts all over again from 2 years, just getting on my conditioning. So everything I was just working out was just stationary, had to stand still, shoot, I couldn't like run and dribble, do anything like that.
Right, right. And if I'm not mistaken, it was myocarditis?
Yes, hypertrophic myocarditis.
Okay. So prior to that incident, you were voted the preseason SEC Player of the Year, and you were considered a potential first-round draft pick by many if you would have come out that season. So we fast forward today. Would you say you're feeling back to your normal self, back to where you were in 2020, or are there any lingering concerns?
I'm feeling. I mean, I definitely feel more comfortable than what I was when I first started the season. I feel like I still have a lot of improvement I can do just with my expectation I have for myself. But I think this year I'm just showcasing more that I can shoot the ball way better than what I was instead of everybody seeing me as a driver. I think I'm shooting at a high clip for people,
Right.
and that's helping me expand on my game as well. So.
Right. And for those, and I didn't say those numbers at the beginning, but I'm going to give you shooting splits because they're pretty crazy. Keyontae shooting 60% from the floor, 52% from three, and 77% from the line. So it appears to me, have you trimmed down a little bit?
A lot of people say I have. I feel like I'm still at the same weight that I was at Florida.
Okay.
I'm still feel the same as that.
Did you stop hitting the weights? Because I mean, you're a fanatic that way, no?
Yeah, I don't know. A lot of people like what you saying. A lot of people come up to me and say I look like I got skinnier or just
that's
just
what
look
I
like
thought.
just look. But I mean, I'm still weighing the exact same. I weigh 230, and I mean I've been playing. I feel good at the weight I'm at. So.
Yeah. Oh, one other thing about the heart. Do they monitor? Are there any restrictions? Do they monitor you now? I noticed on your wristband, it seems like there's something on your wrist.
Yeah, I have it's like a little heart monitor thing that just track my heartbeat. Just like basically reports after the game so the doctors can see if anything is if my heart like just moving the right way. I mean, everything is fine. It's nothing like anything serious. It's just like a heart rate monitor. A lot of us have it on the team, just something they're trying to expand. So
okay. So right now, I mean, they consider you 100% healthy, and there's nothing you really have to.
Sure.
Okay.
100% healthy. Nothing. I mean, it's nothing like that I went through. They seen that was way worse. They feel like it was just the same. It just my situation was more like published because I had collapsed in the game on live television, so that made it seem like it was worse. But it was, of course, there's like a lot of people out there that has the same thing that I went through and everything.
Right. So statistically, you're either setting career high marks so far this year, or you're close to your 2020 numbers. So with that said, are you satisfied where you are? I know you said been working on your outside shot. What do you consider to be your strengths right now, and what areas would you like to maybe improve upon as the season goes on?
I feel like my strength is just attacking the rack and hitting the open shots for my teammates. Just playing with confidence right now. Just keep playing with confidence. Just helping my teammates build off my confidence and just keeping everybody involved. And something I need to work on better is just me turning the ball over. I feel like I'm turning over more than I normally do. Just careless turnovers. It's not like I'm getting plugged or anything. Like I'm driving, trying to make a move, and then lose the ball, right, tighten up the grip. So that's one thing I definitely think I should improve on right now.
Okay. Sounds good. So is there any particular NBA player you've always idolized and said, I kind of want to be like, I want to be like him. I want to be like Mike.
Yeah, my favorite player is Kawhi Leonard. I just like how he's like efficient in everything he do. Just go out there, work, don't say too much. But when I've been setting out, I've been watching Jason Tatum and DeMar DeRozan. So they like building on me for the last 2 years.
Yes. Excellent choices. 3 of my favorite players too. So moving on to the team, this is Coach Tang's first year at Kansas State, following a long tenure as an assistant at Baylor. How would you describe him as a coach?
Very great coach. He's a great coach. He's very energetic. He know how to talk to the players the right way, get everybody involved. He's more family first, so we do a lot of things as a team together. He know how to just build with us and bond with us the right way, rather than just always yelling or just being draining. Like every time we come to practice, everybody excited to come to practice, ready to work, and it's just a good energy and good vibe to be around.
Well, that's excellent. Big 12 play starts New Year's Eve. You've played in the SEC for 2 years. You haven't played a Big 12 game yet, right?
Yeah, I have. We played SEC and Big 12 challenge.
Oh, right.
Yes, I played West Virginia my first year. My second year, we actually played Coach Tang and Baylor at Florida. And then my third year, the year I collapsed, we ended up playing West Virginia again.
Okay.
We played TCU my freshman year. We played West Virginia my third year.
Was Shegway at West Virginia when you were?
Yeah, we beat West Virginia. We lost to TCU, and we lost to Baylor. But we beat West Virginia twice.
So knowing what you do about the SEC and knowing what you know about the Big 12, how do you expect play to be different?
I think it's going to be more physical.
Right.
Just getting to conference play. I feel like the refs may allow us to play more, just playing through contact. I mean, I know a lot of teams, Big 12, they say is the pro league, so it's going to be a lot of good nights, a lot of great games going on. Man, I haven't really played like consistently Big 12 teams, so this will be like my first go around as well.
Right. Yeah, I would think it's more physical, more defensive oriented.
Yeah.
That's the way I would think about it. All right. So I wanted to ask you about a couple of your teammates, Marquise Noel and Naquan Tomlin. Would you say, are they two of the best kept secrets in the country?
Nah, for sure. I mean, you got Marquise, second in the nation in assists per game? Like, you can't have a better point guard that's looking to dish the ball and then to score the way he could score and knock down threes. And then Naquan, 6'10", 6'11", athletic wing, could defend, score, rebound, push the ball to the court. So it's like they bound to have a breakout game, and it's going to shock a lot of people in the world.
Right. Now, I've been familiar with Marquise for a long time because he's been playing at a high level for 4 years. But I didn't know Naquan until the Rhode Island game, and he caught my eye in that game. And I've noticed in his game logs, he's actually been pretty hot since then.
Yeah. Now he's just been playing. He's playing with a lot of confidence right now, playing with consistency, just playing his basketball that he liked to play, just not letting nobody speed him up. He's taking good shots and just playing hard, really. So I feel like the more he keep doing that, a lot of people are going to realize who Naquan is.
Yeah, I agree. So I know this is kind of a corny question because everyone wants to go to the Final Four and win the NCAA championships, but what are your, given everything you've gone through, what are your personal goals for this season, and what are your expectations for the team? Reasonably, obviously I know you want to win the NCAA championship, but what are your reasonable goals that maybe you guys talk about on a regular basis?
My personal goal is just basically get back to where I was at. I know I was projected to go first round, so just trying to keep showing people why I was projected that high and just showing who really Keyontae Johnson is in the basketball standpoint. And then as a team goal, I would say it's funny because we actually say like we want to say national championship, but I feel like I want to win the Big 12 championship. I never won the SEC championship, so just start somewhere new with a new coach, just set a statement and just try to win a Big 12 championship and just keep going from there. Anything else could happen for March Madness. So
right, as it did a few years ago with K-State. They had an unsurprising run that nobody saw coming.
Yeah.
So a personal question: what do you like off the court? What do you like to do for fun? I know you have school and basketball keep you really busy, but what do you like to do for fun? What do you like to do to relax?
Off the court, I just go chill with my teammates. I have my dog out here too. In the pit next to the tier, so I just go home, walk her, and then me and my teammates play the game. Really, I got one of my teammates right here, Payne Ackerman. So that's what we would play the game. We just do a lot of team function stuff. Like I said, like Coach Tane, we go to Coach Tane's house every Sunday, have team dinner with around 2:30, and then throughout the week we just go team PT. It's like a little training table. We got to go to get food. We do a lot of things as a team together. We walk around, just you won't see one of us by ourselves. So.
Do you get this time to sneak home for Christmas or?
Yeah, we actually going home December 22nd. Trying to surprise my mom. That's her birthday, so she don't know I'm going right now.
Don't tell mom to watch the podcast.
She might already know. I think my dad said she figured out, but I'm going home on the 22nd, and we come back the 26th or the 27th. So.
And you were born in Fairfax. Do they still live there, or you were born in Virginia?
I was born in Jacksonville, Florida. I was raised in Norfolk, Virginia.
Ah, Norfolk. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's where your folks are now?
Yeah, they back in Norfolk, Virginia.
Okay, cool. Well, have a good time there. All right. So I got one last question. I'm going to let you go. If I understand this correctly, but I know there's some confusion, but are you eligible if you desire? Can you play one more college season?
Yes, I have another college year as well.
Okay. All right.
So this is my medical year, or people might say it could be my COVID year, one of those. And then,
right.
Because I only played 2 years of college.
Right.
So this would really be my 3rd year, then next year I have one more year.
Okay, good. All right. Well, that's great. Well, I hope you have a wonderful season, and I hope you have a nice Christmas, and glad you get to go home for that. And thanks so much for your time today. By the way, I want to make this clear. I'm going to say in 2020 we probably had you about number 30 on our draft board. We never took you off our draft board, ever. Your name is still on our draft board. Of course, you deserve, but I mean, even when you were ill, you still stayed. Yeah, just wanted you to know that we believed in you, and I'm so happy to see you playing again, man.
No, I appreciate that. Appreciate you.
All righty, and maybe you'll when the season's over, you'll come back and visit us and let us know what's next.
Yeah, no, I got you for sure.
All right.
Just tell her I'll do it.
All right. You got it, Keyontae. All right. Have a nice holiday and have a great season.
You too. You have a good Christmas.
All right. Bye-bye. All right. So let's do Stock Rising. Great interviews, by the way. Fun guys. All right, so Stock Rising, we're going to lead off with several freshmen on this list, actually 3 to be exact. And the first one is Dariq Walker of Houston, who was very relevant and prevalent in the win over Houston. And I actually, his birth date was where we get our birth dates from. They actually screwed it up on Real GM, and now I find out today he's a year younger than I thought. So I thought he was an older freshman, like Brendan Miller, and he's not. He's only 19 years old, just turned 19 a couple months ago. So yeah, that's a good thing for Dariq Walker. Just being younger, a year younger, puts you on the Stock Rising list. But he really played well against Virginia. Probably his best all-around game of the season. 17 points, 55% from the field, 2 of 3 from deep, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, and I think maybe that was 1 steal. I'm not sure about blocks.
He had a block that game.
He had a block.
He did have a block, yeah.
And he's been doing that rather regularly, getting, like 1 block and 1 steal a game. But, I still think, his outside shooting probably is a little suspect, but his overall numbers are very good. And I was really impressed with his passing. For a big guy, he really made some smart passes in that game against a good defensive team on the road. On the season, by the way, he's shooting 49% from the field, 42% from 3, but only on about 1.6 attempts.
Super low volume.
Yeah. And from the foul line, 64%. So all in all, I think this kid is for us. We won't be releasing new rankings till the year turns. But I think he's going to be close to lottery range, not if in the lottery range. What do you think about that, Drew?
Yeah, I mean, I was really impressed with the Virginia game. Actually, his last couple of games, I would say going back to the North Florida. I think they played University of North Florida a couple of weeks ago. And his last about month of basketball, he's really come on strong. Just in terms of passing, he's defending. I mean, you play at Houston, you have to defend, but he's defending. He's actually averaging 1 block, 1 steal a game. And I know Rich, you and I love when we see that because it just shows like that kind of versatility. The scoring still isn't all the way, there. We talked about the shooting is suspect, and I agree. I mean, the reality of it is his volume is so low and the free throw shooting is not great. So I don't think he's a great shooter, but he's willing to take them. He's capable of making them. And this is another kid that he's playing with inside that Houston offense, which is chaotic, which is a lot of transition. It's a lot of attacking the rim, pushing, punishing people on the glass, but he's doing that well. He's a good athlete. He moves well. I really like this kid. I think I need to see just a little bit more, kind of like what we had with Terrence Arsenault. He had that big game against Oregon, and now he's really seemed to kind of fallen out of favor.
I think he didn't play the other day because he's hurt.
He is hurt, but he was falling out of favor. Now he's injured. But I would love to see Walker really, these next couple of games continue the momentum. And he's at 10 points a game right now. If he can finish this season, maybe in that 10 to 12 range, continue to rebound. He's rebounding really well. And like you said, the passing is really intriguing because he wasn't doing a lot of playmaking, but last month, you're starting to see it a little bit more. He's not like a primary playmaker. He's not a point forward or anything like that, but he's making the right read and he's getting the ball where it needs to go. And he doesn't really turn the ball over too much. Again, this last month, he's played in 5 games and he's turned it over 3 times. And his minutes have steadily climbed. I mean, he played 40 against Virginia, but he played, I think, against St. Mary's. I saw him there. He didn't play great. But, Alabama, he played 30 minutes. He just played almost 40 against Virginia. So I think by the time the season ends and he has a little bit more time to just develop, I could see this kid really coming out of nowhere and surprising some people.
Yeah. The next guy is also a freshman. And actually, I think they were very closely ranked. I think they were both like top 15. I'm not sure who was ahead, but Walker and Chris Livingston of Kentucky were all both like over 15th overall in the recruiting rankings. Livingston's a little different. He's a solidly built wing. They list him at 6'6", 220, but to me, he looks a little bigger in both departments. Yeah. So I don't know. He just looks a little bigger. He had been doing fine, but he had been hardly playing. And UCLA, I suppose, probably we could call it a breakout game. But again, Calipari didn't play him much in the first half, and then he pretty much played almost the entire second half. Finished 25 minutes, 14 points. Didn't do much else in the stat department, 4 rebounds. But his shooting, he was very shot 5 of 8 from the field overall. 2 of 3 from deep. So I guess, the thing of it is with Livingston, we didn't move. We still had him in first round territory, but when a guy's only playing, 15 minutes a game or less, it's hard to, unless you've seen a lot of them and the guy's game inside out and Calipari's not playing him for some silly reason or whatever. But, yeah, I think Livingston showed his talent. He's more of a mid-range guy right now, but and for some reason, UCLA just seemed to maybe I don't know, maybe he wasn't even on the scouting report, but he did seem to get a lot of open looks in that second half. But some of them he also created. So, you have a physically built, solidly built, athletic wing here. And on the season, 49% from the floor, 43% from deep. I think everything's looking good as long as Calipari continues to give him playing time.
Yeah, my jury is still, and I know probably for all of us it is, I need to see him go on a 3 or 4 game stretch and not even playing really great, of just playing. I mean, that's the reality. He hasn't played it all this year, so you see the talent, you see the reasons why he should be in that consideration for a first round pick. But, I go back, we talked about Peyton Watson earlier, and I'm not saying they're similar players, but he just didn't play. He couldn't get into the rotation. And so people were taking him on the potential factor. I just, I'm just holding reservation because it's like, is this going to be his best game of the season? And we look back and go, he had one good game, or is this going to be, oh, that was the start of the breakout? So I like the physical profile, but everything else, I just don't really feel comfortable with speaking on because, yeah, the shooting splits look nice. But if you go back and look, he's had a lot of games where he's taken 3 shots and he's made, 2 for 3. And you're like, okay, like, yeah, that's a high percentage, but weren't really taking, like, he took 5 shots. I mean,
this is the first big opponent where he played good minutes and got a fair amount of shots up. Yeah.
Right.
No, I hear you. I'm just saying if this trend continues, if we finally got to see him, and he did well. Totally. We finally got to see him play against a good opponent and he did well. So, I think he's definitely, and certainly, if he could continue this trend, I mean, we're talking about a 5-star guy. So, I mean, who knows where he could go from here.
If he gets to 20 minutes a game, even 20, just 5 more minutes, 20 to 25 minutes a game, is as they enter SEC play where they're going to be playing good opponents, more or less, in and out, night in, night out. And he's giving you in that 14 points, 4 rebounds, maybe 2 assists, maybe a steal, a block, just because he does have a good physical profile. And the shooting splits can stay in that, 46 to 50 range. And the 3-ball, he's kind of also like a walker. The 3-ball it's so low volume, it looks good, but it's like he's only taking like 1 a game.
Right.
But just the willingness to shoot it and hit it, then I see it. And I'm willing to buy the stock. It's there, but we've talked about it a lot today. Just I need to see it from a freshman. And it's like, at least with Amari Bailey, he's played the good games and the bad. He's been constantly playing, so I can justify that. Here, it's like, give me a month of good play in the SEC, and now you got something.
Unfortunately, that's not in his control, and we run into this situation with Kentucky prospects year in, year out,
all the time. I mean, Damian Collins is somebody that we've interviewed on the show. We just talked about him. You think it's there from high school?
Another top 15 recruit.
Yeah. But, he's just not getting on the court. So,
right. The next guy on our list, everyone's familiar with, and we've seen a ton of him, and he's just getting better and better. And that's Arizona junior Azuolas Tubelis. He just helped Arizona come up with a big win against Tennessee, a game that I thought Arizona pretty much, I mean, they didn't dominate it, but I felt like, you kind of
pretty wire to wire. Yeah,
you pretty much felt like they were going to win it from the start, and we both picked them, which was a curse on them, but Azuolas, he's like 6'10", 6'11", can play center, can play forward because he has the mobility, runs the court really well. And has good for his size, has good speed and very good speed and solid quickness. And this year he's averaging almost 20 points a game, 19.6, shooting 60% from the field, 33% from deep, 85% from the foul line. Almost 9 rebounds a game, 2 assists per game, 1 steal, almost 1 block. The 2 things, if I had to, I would like to see him shoot it a little more from the outside. I mean, obviously the team is doing so well.
Right.
But I know he has a decent stroke. I saw it when he was a freshman. And I really think he could be a solid 35, 37, 38% 3-point shooter. And the other thing is, I also have seen him make a lot of great passes, but we're not really seeing that this year. Right now, his assist to turnover ratio is like 1. He's got like 2 turnover or 2.1 turnovers per game, 2 assists per game. So but he is their best player. And, I don't think anyone's going to argue with that. I mean, some might say Ballo, but I think Tubelis
is their best overall player.
Right.
Ballo's their best physical interior presence, but
right.
Tubelis is a better basketball player.
Right. But I would like to see him, make a couple more assists, and I'd like to see him take a couple more threes a game, and I think he'd start knocking them down if he got, if he shot them regularly. But who's going to argue with a team that's just rolling like they are?
Yeah, I've seen Tubelis now for 3 years, 4, whatever it is.
Three.
3. He's continued to get better. He's stepped in. I had questions. Last year he kind of got to operate as that, second, third kind of guy because you had Matherin at the one, leading the team. Then you had Dalen Terry. He was there. Kirk Kriisa could have a big shooting night, but he has stepped into that kind of big dog alpha role in terms of the offensive scoring pretty damn seamlessly. And, I do agree, Rich. I've seen the jump shot. I'm not saying he needs to be taking 4 or 5 a game, but maybe 2. And I think if he takes 2.5 a game, I don't see any reason why he couldn't shoot 36, 37%. I feel like the turnovers are just a product of just his usage and, him touching. His touches have just gone up. He's now the guy.
High speed of the Arizona game.
High speed offense. But I've also seen enough passing. I'm not going to go as far to say that he's like a point forward build, but I've seen him be able to make the right pass, to be able to push the ball out in transition, get down the court. I've seen him be able to pass from the post, hit somebody as a cutter if he's in the high post. I really like this, Tubelis' game. I think he's very clearly one of, if not, you can maybe even argue, I'm just trying to think, the best player in the Pac-12 as it stands. I'm just trying to think. I have really no gripe with him because I feel like he's gotten better. This year he continues to play at a high level. He's done it against the best opponents they've played. He's done it against the worst opponents that they've played. He's been consistent. As a West Coast basketball guy, this is somebody that I enjoy watching. I have really no gripes with him. I think when I tell at times I'm probably the cynic. I'm super critical. This is a player that I'm like actually don't have any major issue with. I think he is playing at a very high level. He has shown up. He's the driving force of this team as their leader. And I think Tubelis is playing awesome basketball.
And nobody in the preseason, I didn't see him in any mock draft. I didn't see him in any draft board. Ours, he was. He's been, in our top 40 of our draft board, all year. I just don't understand why people don't see him as a viable NBA player.
I think it's interesting, and maybe this is me just off the cuff, and it's been years now, but like I remember when Lauri Markkanen was at Arizona. And now Lauri was shooting. He was hitting the 3 ball at a 40-plus clip. He was much – I'm not going to say 100% better as a shooter because just Tubelis isn't taking them at the same rate, but Markkanen was a legit 40% shooter on probably 4 or 5 attempts a game. So I get it. 7 foot tall shoots. That is NBA gold. But I'm just thinking like – hold on. I pull up Lauri's stats right here, and it's like Tubelis outside of the shooting is – on par, if not better, in pretty much every category. Now I know he's older, but I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm, thinking I can't remember that far back, but I mean, Tubelis is a little bit older, but other than that, he's putting up numbers.
The thing of it is, he's still only 20 years old and he's a junior, too.
Right.
So even if he played another year, he'd still only be 21, senior. And can you imagine, maybe he's thinking, all right, if we don't win the national championship this year, I might give it another go next year because next year I can expand my game. I'll show them I can shoot. And you know what? I'll be a first-round pick. I don't know. It's just a thought.
As it stands, I would not be mad at a team if an NBA team, and again, it's as it's standing, if things happen, but if he were to enter the draft, finishes the season right where he's at now, I would not be mad if a team in those late first-round picks took a flyer on him. Yeah, I would have no problem. I would have no problem as a Warriors fan if the Warriors were had pick 27 and said we're going to take Tubelis. I'd be like, you know what? I've seen enough in college. He clearly can play, and maybe an NBA team can unlock the shooting.
I think it's there. And just think it's right now. He's just not. He's not asked to use it that way. All right, so now we're going to move on to another favorite of ours, and that's Isaiah Wong. And he seems to have benefited from Nigel Pack missed a game, and now I think this team is starting to figure out Isaiah Wong is option 1. All right, and Nigel Pack has to work off of him. This can't be 1A and 1B. This has to be A and B. And since Wong has kind of, asserted himself, not only is Miami probably playing their best ball of the year, but man, has he gone on a roll of late. I'll give you his game logs over the last four games. 36 against Cornell, 22 against NC State, 22 against St. Francis, and 24 last night against Virginia. So put up 22 against NC State, 24 against, Virginia. So we're not talking chump change here. And to me, I just, Isaiah, he's another one. I just don't understand why people don't like him. I mean, he's got dribble moves galore. I mean, go between the legs, go behind the back, take a step back, all in the blink of an eye. And at the rim, he has a lot of athleticism and acrobatics. He can make a lot of difficult finishes. He's got the mid-range game. So yeah, why don't people like Isaiah Wong?
I think sometimes we talk ourselves out, and I might say I say just the basketball community. I think sometimes we just talk ourselves out of a guy because, especially with guards, as they get older, it's almost like there's like he's a junior, he's still there. And I'm like, yeah, he's a junior, and he's giving these top opponents. I mean, he gave Maryland this year earlier, he gave them 22 and was effective from the field. I mean, they lost, but he scored against them. And I don't understand what there really is into look, is he going to be a lockdown perimeter defender, all NBA? Like, maybe not, but you're going to tell me there's no teams in the NBA that shouldn't be looking at a guy that may be off their bench that can come in and give them a spark of 16, 17, 18 points. And what I've loved, and I know scoring is kind of the calling card, his passing the last month in those same games, going back from bottom up, Cornell, he had 6 assists to 1 turnover. NC State, again, not chump change, 8 assists to 0 turnovers. St. Francis, okay, that's kind of chump change, but he had 10 assists to 3 turnovers. And last night he had 5 assists to 3 turnovers against one of the perennial defensive powerhouses in the country.
And on the year, he's averaging I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yep. On the year, he's at 4.5 assists a game to only 1.8 turnovers a game.
Which is a career high in assists. Also shooting a career high 38% from deep.
On solid volume.
And also shooting a career high 47% from the field. And 81% from the foul line, as long as we're giving out all of his great stats. This guy can play. This guy can play, man. And the funny thing of it is he's kind of flashy about it. And
he's got flair to his game. Some of them dribble last night.
That's why I don't understand why people don't talk about him more. I'm like, the guy's so fun to watch. The only thing I can think of is, he defers sometimes. He's not one to force the issue, typically. And
which is a good thing. We should be thankful.
Yeah.
He could be like, I'm to shoot every time. Go get the rebound. You want the ball.
Right.
And just imagine the numbers he'd be putting up if Jordan Miller and Pack weren't in that front or backcourt with him. Like if those three weren't on the perimeter, which are all three very talented college players, and I've said it, I think Jordan Miller might be the best NBA prospect of the bunch. Right. He's sharing the backcourt and the ball handling and the perimeter duties with 3 other guys who are very good college players. If he was running this team as the bona fide number 1, the only guard, he'd probably average 25 a night.
Yeah,
I really believe he could probably average close to 25 a night if he really was like, it's all I'm gonna do. They might not win a lot, but he'd score a hell of a lot of points.
I agree.
I don't get it. I really like him.
Yeah.
He's
I do too.
Fun player to watch. Him and Tabellis. I think those are 2. I'm glad we talked about them. Those are 2 guys that are putting up outstanding numbers on great teams, and nobody's talking about them.
I agree. And one final thought is that people don't realize how deep this team is. They had this year, they had 4 freshmen come in that were top 150. 2 of them were top 100. Only one of them is really playing. But they have more depth that they're not even using right now. And Wooga Poplar is coming on. It's coming on. And, Pack has kind of, been somewhat disappearing, but Poplar is coming on. So this team is not to be taken lightly. All right, so we will move on. And the next guy we're going to talk about in Stock Rising is another freshman. And he had his coming out party in that North Carolina game, and that's Bryce Sensabaugh. And we mentioned Bryce once before in the show. And why can't I? Oh, sorry. I couldn't get his numbers to come up. But he kind of had, was it his high? Yeah, it was a season high. So he scored a season high against the Tar Heels. 22 points on 9 of 17 shooting, including 2 of 6 from deep. Also grabbed 8 boards, 3 assists. So nice all-around game for Sensabaugh. He came in with a reputation of all offense, no defense, but I saw him playing at crunch time in that game. I didn't really focus on him defensively, so I won't. I'm going to, this is a guy who's slowly gaining the trust. But in the last 2 games, Rutgers and North Carolina, he's played over 30 minutes in both. So he's definitely now getting starters minutes, even if he is starting now. The last 2 games he has started. So the kid is a mid-range force. He really has a lot of moves and he has a lot of strength. I think ultimately you're going to probably see him trimmed down a lot, like a lot of Ohio State players. They look like they have like 10 NFL tight ends out there.
It's a football school. That's why.
Yeah, exactly.
They're like, if they don't work out on the basketball court, put them in pads and throw them out there.
And it's funny because Ice Likely didn't play against North Carolina, and he too has the same build, all muscle, they just look like. Yeah. But anyway, Sensabaugh is just a 3-level scorer. I think his outside shooting, that needs to come along a little more. I don't, though he's hit a great percentage this year.
The last time I watched him play and this was a while ago at the Maui against San Diego State, who's solid, and
oh my God, he's 48% from deep.
Yeah, no, he's playing he's playing really good offensive ball. I've only seen him play against San Diego State, and then I did watch a little bit of the UNC loss, but I have been impressed with the offensive arsenal. Again, like some of these guys, especially when they come in and they have that mantra of their scores, I would love to see maybe that rebounding or the passing. I mean, he had 3 assists, like. I'd love to see him maybe carry one of those 2 kind of over and be like, okay, I'm going to give you 15 points tonight and I'm going to pull down 4 or 5 boards and just kind of, he's had a lot of games where it's either if he's not giving you double-digit points, you're getting nothing from him. Mm-hmm. But with that, I mean, against Duke, he gave you 4 points and that was it. He had 4 points fouled out.
He also puts the ball a lot on the floor.
Yeah,
which can lead to turnovers. So that's something he needs to work on. Think about sharing the ball a little more. But this is a guy who's scoring 15 points in 21 minutes a game.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's definitely like a point per minute guy. But he went. Like I said, this is the second time he's been on Stock Rising. The first time he broke into our top 200. Now I think he's encroaching on breaking into our top 100. So, yeah. Any more thoughts on Bryce, or shall we move on to?
I'm really excited to see Bryce over the next couple of weeks. This was kind of the coming out party. I think in the next couple of weeks, I could see him continuing to rise. The talent is there, but I need to see more outside of just trying to put the ball in the bucket. It's a great skill to have, but if you want to talk potential NBA, especially as a freshman, I just need something else. Something's got to come along for the ride because you're not going to score and shoot like this at the next level.
Right. And he came in with a reputation of being pretty much offensive only.
Right.
So,
right.
Okay. So the next guy is a Zag. And we've mentioned him. I don't know what game it was. I guess it was the Baylor game where he kept them.
He single-handedly kept him in that game for stretches. There were stretches where he was the only thing going for him.
And you know what? If you ask me, I know Drew Timmy's going to get all the accolades, but I'll be damned if he doesn't play against Alabama, they don't win that game either. Nope. Again, all over the floor, doing everything. And people, it really annoys me, actually. Every game, like, well, he has no offense. You know what? I mean, the guy, his whole career, I mean, I know he's not a great shooter, but he's a fine interior scorer. I mean, for his career, 57% from the field, and from 3-point land, okay, you're right, 19% for his career. But you know what? Every year he's brought that up a little bit. It's up to 24% this year. I mean, maybe I'm dreaming a little, and he's 65% for the line. But he hit a couple threes, I believe. Didn't he hit a couple threes against Bama?
He did hit a 3 for sure. He might have hit 2, but he did hit a 3. I know he did. Yeah.
But I mean, he's a solid passer, he's a very good defender, and a very good rebounder. And so I think I said after that Baylor game, I just keep, every time I watch Anton Watson, I'm thinking, you know what, this guy's he's gonna find his way on an NBA roster.
Yeah, I love Anton. And I think that Anton is something that these Zags have actually missed over the years. I know that he's been kind of a sixth man. Like throughout his career, he was like, when he was younger, he was barely playing. And then the last like 2 years when they had the Suggs run, and then last year, he was kind of in that sixth man role. But now he's starting. And again, not saying they're the same player, but the impact he has is very, to me, reminiscent of Jalen Williams from Arkansas last year. Just kind of the dirty work, brings the pail to lunch, the lunch pail to work every day, clocks in and does whatever he needs to do to help this team get over the hump. And you know what, Rich, you are so right. Someone's going to look at that, and I'm not saying he's going to get drafted, but they're going to look at that. He's going to end up somewhere on a roster, and he's going to make a team because there's going to be a day in practice when he just busts the starter's ass, and he's outrunning people down the court. He's crashing the glass. This guy, I love this dude. And it's not just because he's a Zag, but it's the type of player, maybe because this is the type of player I would have had to be if I ever had a college career. This is what I would have had to do. But you can't tell me. And when
you're saying the Bay Area Bomber could only shoot 25 cent for deep?
No. I'd have a little bit more in my bag than that. But I love the intensity this guy plays with. And you look at all their big games, whether they're losses or wins, but the top opponents they've played, he's always shown up. Purdue's kind of the outlier. The whole team didn't show up against Purdue, and Texas as well. But Kentucky, great defense against Sheway, had a 10-point, 10-board double-double. Alabama, 17 points, 5 rebounds, timely shots. He had 3 steals. You look at the Baylor game, they lost, but we said Rich basically kept him in the game. He had 3 steals again, 13 points, 13 rebounds. Xavier, he had 16 and 7 with another 3 steals. I mean, he's just everywhere for this team. Mm-hmm. And so this is a guy that if you don't, I think how people talk about Watson is a great indicator if somebody knows basketball or not. If they talk negatively about Watson because, he's not a super jump out of the gym athlete. He's not shooting 40% from 3. His offensive game is boring and he's just kind of a putback and lob and, hustle finisher. Then they don't know what they're talking about, because there's no way you can watch this guy play and say in moments you go, that was a really big rebound. That was a great, not even a steal, just a great deflection. He took a charge. A great, strong finish at the rim. Like, that's how this kid plays basketball. Right. Big Watson guy. Doesn't matter that he's a Zag. If you
I think he's a fine athlete. I do too. I think he's a fine athlete. I don't think he's I don't think he's the greatest athlete in college basketball, but I bet you if he comes out this year and goes through the drills, I bet you he's probably in the above 65 percentile. He
will surprise people.
Yeah.
Because his athleticism too, to me, is, again, he's 6'8", so of course he can dunk. And I'm not saying he's a bad athlete. I just have watched the people who are like, he's not super explosive. Not everyone's Zion Williamson, folks. Not everyone is 6'6", 6'7", 6'8", with rockets in their shoes. Right. But what I loved about him is his athleticism is subtle. It's quick hands, great hand-eye coordination. It's quick agility. It's quick feet. Rotates his hips well. He has solid strength. He doesn't get pushed around. He went toe-to-toe with Oscar Sheway. And Oscar got his numbers, but Watson got a double-double too. Those are the types of things I noticed. His athleticism is subtle in the way that a Draymond Green's athleticism is subtle, in a way that like a Patrick Beverley's athleticism is subtle. So big Anton Watson guy.
Right. Another guy, I don't know if you're familiar with this guy, but he's also kind of a blue-collar guy and plays for Marquette, and he's the last guy on our Stock Rising this week is Osa Ighodaro. He is a power forward center for Marquette, and he's really been coming on. I'll read off some of his he totally personally destroyed Notre Dame about a week ago by scoring 16 and grabbing 18 boards. And since that game, he's also put up 16 against Creighton, and he scored 15 against Providence last night. So what I like about Ighodaro is he's a smart player. He's a leader. He's a vocal leader. He's a very good defender. And there are a lot of faults with his game, but he is an athletic big, and his size, I believe he's 6'6". They list him as 6'9".
I think he's 6'10".
I was going to say 6'10". I think he's a legit 6'10", or maybe it's just because he has good length. But he's averaging about 1.7 blocks a game, 1 steal a game, almost 7 rebounds a game. Also, 3.3 assists per game for a center. And
And
only
he doesn't turn the ball over.
less than one turnover a game. Is shooting 65% from the field. His weakness is shooting. He can't do it. And so, that is definitely, but this is somebody who's not in our top 200 right now, but I feel when we release the next set of rankings, he will be in the top 200. Right now, I don't think he hasn't made a three this year, and he's only shooting 44% from the free throw line. Obviously, those numbers have to improve, but he has gone from being nowhere. I think he's going to be on our draft board in next publication.
Yeah, I only remember him / familiar with him because I went back and watched some of that Baylor game where they stomped Baylor, and he flashed to me there. He didn't have a monster game, but he had 10.7 boards. And these are the types of players that I think, like, he's going to be in college for 4 years, and I wouldn't be surprised if as a senior, this guy is a second-round pick somewhere because he just, again, we talk about college players, and I think so often we get stuck up in that discourse of like we want them to do everything well and a lot of things great. Look, this guy will probably never. I'm pretty confident in saying he'll never be a knockdown shooter. I haven't seen enough of him to play. I don't know what his jump shot mechanics are, but looking at the stats, it's pretty obvious this guy's not in his wheelhouse. But like, is there really anything wrong with being a 14-point scorer, 10 rebound kind of guy, average almost 2 blocks? So, I definitely, again, I agree. I think he has to be in our top 200 just looking at the stats and the impact. And Marquette's playing really well, and he's a driving force behind that. Like, you have to give him that credit. But I could totally see him in 2 years being on a board and someone taking him in the second round and being really satisfied with a vocal, defensive, switchable, solid athlete, smart, plays with his head. So I'm not super familiar. I've only seen him probably play maybe a total of half of basketball, but I mean, you can't deny the production, and he's doing it against good opponents. Notre Dame is good. Creighton was is still highly regarded. The production's not there, and he did it against Baylor. So this is a kid to keep an eye on. I need to go watch more.
Yeah. All right. So since it's the holidays, we really trimmed down our stock falling list. Only got 4 guys this week. And 2 are freshmen and 2 are sophomores. All right. I think LJ Cryer's a sophomore. Anyway, we'll start off. Topping the list is Julian Phillips, Tennessee's 5-star freshman, who is really, and you could say this about a lot of Tennessee guys, not getting it done on the offensive end. 33% from the field, 19% from the 3-point line, although he's shooting very well from the foul line, which is great, 81%. The rest of his numbers aren't bad. He has a positive assist turnover ratio. He's picking up about 6 rebounds a game and about 1 steal, 1 block. He's a little bit under. But he's just, obviously he's been a solid defender and been contributing in all the ways, you want him to see contribute,
right,
that he can control, with effort. But offensively, right now, it's just not coming. And like I said, this seems to be, I don't know, it seems like some kind of what's the word?
Their guards, man, they're passing around some whatever they're doing. They got
Well, he's not a guard; he's a 6'8" forward, but
like they're perimeter-esque.
Yeah, they just all seem to have some kind of virus or something that. Now, I will say, Zakai Ziegler did pick it up big time in the Arizona game, and if it wasn't for him, they probably wouldn't have been in that Arizona game. But Julian Phillips to me is a good example of of a freshman that might want to consider staying another year, because I think right now he's in danger of not being a first-round pick.
Yeah, I mean, he's been really. So I remember the first game that I really watched them play was the USC game a while back, and he was awesome. He was so super good in that game. He had like 27 points. He was really good. And then I watched him against Kansas, and their next game against Kansas, I watched that game. He was not very good. And then I haven't really watched it up until this Arizona game where, again, he wasn't very good. And I think that the thing is, if you look at the games in between, like against Alcorn, for example, he was like really sharp and on it. I don't know who EKU is.
Eastern Kentucky.
Is that Eastern Kentucky? Okay, he was good there. But like, I think that it boils down to just the fact that he's a freshman and he's playing like it in the biggest stage. They played 3 ranked opponents this year. In those games, he's 3 for 22 from the field.
Right.
All the other games, you take away those 3 games, he's excluding the first 2 games in the season where he wasn't playing a lot. From when against Florida Gulf Coast, he's averaged had double points, double-digit points. He's pulling out 6-7 rebounds. So I think it's just a matter of he's just not ready to compete at the highest level against the top competition. And there's nothing wrong with that being a freshman, but you can't score 8 points and go 1 for 15 against Maryland and Arizona and not be on stock falling.
Yeah. Most definitely. And I guess, part of it is, when you play for Tennessee, you put a lot of energy on the defensive end, and that team in general is just shooting horribly. So he is holding up his own on the defensive end. So just need to see a little more promise, and especially as a shooter. I think right now he's in danger of just falling out of first round consideration.
Right.
So another guy, a lot of people were high on at the start of the year, but I had my reservations, and that's Notre Dame guard JJ Starling. Some people expected him to kind of everybody came back for Notre Dame except for Blake Wesley, and everybody thought Starling would step in and pick up the slack. It hasn't quite happened yet, though Wesley's numbers weren't earth-shattering. But unlike Wesley, there were games even at this time of the year where he kind of took over for Notre Dame. He just took over, give me the ball, get out of the way. Starling is not close to doing that right now. You can see the quick first step, and he is a good driver. But the shooting isn't coming, and right now, Notre Dame, I don't know. I saw them play against Georgia, and they, man, oh man, I mean, they just are not playing well, especially on the defensive end. They can't rebound. They can't stop anybody on the inside. Yeah. Even the most mediocre big men are, going 8 of 10 from the field and grabbing, 10, 12 rebounds a game against them. They just have nothing on the interior, and they play at a very, very slow pace.
Right.
And part of that is because Mike Bray won't use his bench. And I don't know. Notre Dame at this time last year was also struggling similar to this, and then they kind of put it together. But, this team has a lot of shooters. But they're really playing at a slow pace, and defensively, they're just not stopping anyone. And I almost think use your bench a little more and run with all those shooters, because I don't know. I'm thinking that, speeding up the game would help this team. But anyway, getting back to Starling, right now he's only shooting 30% from deep, and he has not proven to be a good passer or shown a lot of point guard. He came in, it was a supposed combo guard, but right now he's only got 1.1 assists per game and 1.5 turnovers per game. So, and this is a guy who's playing 33 minutes a game, and he's only averaging 1.1 assists. If you would have told me beginning of season, JJ Starling is going to be playing 33 minutes a game, well, how many assists will be averaging a game? I'd say, I don't know, 3, 4, and he's averaging 1. So, I mean, you see the talent there, but the guy is not big. He's only 6'2". Actually, they haven't listed as 6'4".
I don't think I haven't seen enough to really comment on his game as a whole, but he's not 6'4" seems big. I'd say at best maybe 6'3". If you want to be generous.
I'll believe 6'3". I don't know if I see 6'4", but certainly doesn't play 6'4".
Yeah.
I mean, he's averaging less than a steal per game, averaging less than a block per game, only less than 3 rebounds per game. He's just, those people who said he was going to be a first-round draft pick, and there were a lot of them preseason, he's not going to be a first-round draft pick. I'm telling you right now. And I would, the way this season's going, I'd kind of be surprised if he actually comes out.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not playing bad. He's just not playing draftable.
He's not playing he's not playing like a first round pick. That's for sure. I haven't seen a lot of Notre Dame, and I've only maybe seen them play one game. If that, I'm trying to think. I've definitely seen them play once. But if you're a draft pick and I've seen you play, especially only once, I'm going to remember who you are. That's the way I look at it.
Well,
I'm not super familiar with you.
Yeah. I've seen about 5 or 6 of their games.
Yeah.
And yeah, the only thing that I really like, at first, the other thing is he always goes to the right, so he's predictable driver,
Right.
or for most of the time. I like his athleticism at the rim. He can make some really tough finishes, and I like his first step. He definitely can get by guys. It's not hard for him to get you on his hip. But yeah, other than that, there's a lot of growing to do.
Right.
All right. Merry Christmas, JJ. Next guy is a guy who led Baylor in scoring last year, and he is a junior. And that's LJ Cryer. He led them in scoring before he got hurt. And this year, too, he was healthy at the start of the season, but he's been bothered at times by a back issue. And I don't know the details of that. I just know he's been questionable for a few games. I don't think he missed the start, though.
No, I'm pretty sure he's played. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's been there.
But the problem, Baylor, they barely got by Washington State on Sunday night. And Flagler is playing pretty well, and of course Keyontae is playing nice. But Cryer just they don't seem to be all meshing in. And the thing of it is London Love, the 4-star guy who got hurt last year and didn't play at all. He's a lot bigger. I mean, Cryer's only 6'1". Love, I think, is 6'4", maybe 6'5". He's starting to show some, and so I could see a situation where, I don't know, maybe Love gets playing time for the struggling Cryer. But anyway, the last 3 games, 7 points against Gonzaga, 6 points against Washington State, and last night against Northwestern State, only 11 points. And in those games, he went a combined 9 of 27. That's 33%. So I don't know if the back is bothering him. So his last best game was that blowout at Marquette when they got destroyed. Yeah. He had 19 in that game, but that could have been garbage time. I didn't even watch the second half.
Yeah, I didn't watch the second half. I feel like if there's an injury that we're not super familiar with, because I didn't hear anything about it being hurt, I almost want to say, I'm looking at his production. I just have his game log up here, and it almost feels like, because I saw him play against the Zags, I saw them play against UCLA, and I saw them play against UVA, and he was great. The Zags, he wasn't great, but he had a really strong stretch to start this season. I mean, it's very night and day. He had 67% from the field for 19 points against UVA. He had 30 against UCLA, which was the first game that I watched in its entirety. And I mean, basically he did whatever he wanted against that team. And then Marquette, they got blown out, but he still, he played well individually, at least offensively. And so I almost want to have to believe that if there's something going on, we just don't know about it. Because the drop off from his first, was that 8 games to the last 3 has been very stark. Shooting from 3 is down. Shooting from the field is down. He's no steals. He's not like a blocks guy, but it just seems, I don't know.
Well, I definitely know it's a back issue, and obviously it's not enough to stop him from playing. It's just how much is it actually affecting him on the court.
Right.
But here's another thing I'm going to say about, and this goes for every guy that I say who's under 6'4". So 6'3" and under, you really, I think, to have hope for the NBA, if you're playing a lot of minutes, you should probably be averaging around at least 3 assists per game if you want to have hope in the NBA, because they're not going to start 2, 6'2" guys at the same time. Right. So either you better be like instant offense, or if you want to have a regular role, you better be a good passer. And that's something that Cryer has never been, ever. And so there's another thing that he needs to work on. I'm going to guess that you are absolutely correct, and this back problem is affecting him more than anyone's letting on. But still, even if we took his numbers, if we didn't look at the recent slump, we still have to say, come on, LJ, start sharing the ball, work on other parts of your game.
You can't have. He literally has a 2.2 to 2.1 a turnover assist ratio. That's not going to cut it.
No. All right, and so the last guy we mentioned at the top, and that's Creighton's Trey Alexander, and
Right.
Trey has been kind of had a nightmare stretch of late, and it doesn't necessarily show up in points scored, but listen to these numbers.
Yeah.
Since the Arizona game, are you ready for this? Texas 0 for 8, Nebraska 3 of 12, BYU 3 of 12, Arizona State 3 of 8, Marquette 2 of 6. Now in there he scored double figures only once, of 17 against BYU. That's because he went to the foul line a lot in that game.
Right.
But otherwise, he also scored 12 against Arizona State. But basically, he has just not been able to throw it in the ocean. Actually, he hasn't taken a lot of threes. And I'd say, let's see, during that stretch, it looks like
He's only taken, I think, 2 a game, 2, maybe 3 a game. He's not shooting high, super high volume from 3.
10. I'm doing math here on the show. 18. He's shooting 33%, 6 of 18 during that stretch from deep. So that's not horrible, but it's not good either. So the bottom line, Trey, we know Trey can do it. We saw it last year when Nebhard went down, and they asked the guy to play point guard, and then Kalkbrenner also went down. So it was Trey and Kaluma against Kansas in that round. Was that round to 32? I believe.
Yes.
Yeah. It was just those two guys. And also, in the game before, Kalkbrenner, I believe, went down. So they also had to win that game to get to Kansas. And we saw Trey do it quite a lot, even before then, when it was just him, when Nebhard went down and he had to, do a lot of the point guard play. It's just something right now. Like I said, it has coincided a lot when Kalkbrenner went down, but you really wouldn't think that would affect his shooting. I don't know. I don't know.
I'm definitely worried about Trey, maybe even more so, just because. It's been a horrible stretch, and it happens. The whole team. It's not just him. The whole team is struggling. Obviously, you don't lose 6 in a row and not look at something as the team as a whole, but. The thing that concerns me the most is outside of the three ball, which has also not really been great the last month. It's kind of buoyed by a pretty strong start. Statistically, he's the same exact player as he was last year.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm worried. Like, he's taking on more minutes, but his field goal percentage is almost to a T the same. 3-point percentage and free throw percentage have climbed nicely. So okay, I do like to see that, but. Rebounds, he's averaging less than 1 more rebound a game. He's actually averaging 0.3 less assists a game, so we'll call it a draw. His turnovers are exactly the same. His blocks, slight bump. His steals, he's up to 1 a game. But all of his stats have increased, and it's only because the minutes have increased. It's not because he's shooting better from the floor. It's not because he's defending at a higher level, in my opinion. It's just he's the same player that he was last year with just more minutes. And last year, I thought he was okay, and I thought in stretches he was really good at times, but he was just okay across the board.
Right.
And the problem is he's still just okay, but they don't need him. They need him to be good and also take on the mantle of an extra 6, 7, 8 minutes a game now. So I think that he's just not. He hasn't gotten better as a basketball player. He does the same things at the same level, and with more minutes, it's looking even worse now because now he's out there for a longer period of time. So now there's an extra 2 or 3 misses a game. Now there's an extra turnover a game. Now there's an extra
4 turnovers against Marquette.
Exactly. So I think he just has not coincided with his production is not bumped up with the increase in minutes, and that's problematic. I could live with his numbers even, I could live with a substantial growth in some areas and maybe none in others, but it's literally across the board. He's the same guy with the exception of he's shooting better from 3. And even then the volume's only at 3 a game. So it's not like he's taking 8 a game, and you're like, okay, well, he's shooting really good. So I haven't seen enough growth from him, which worries me because his team needs him probably at least for the next month. They're going to really need him, especially if Kalkbrenner's farther away than we think.
Yeah, I mean, I would suspect he's gotta be coming back soon. I mean,
Yeah, I can't imagine he missed
the only
more than
thing
one
I can
game,
think of is if
but-
it's mononucleosis, and I know mono like can linger for like weeks,
Yeah.
sometimes months. But other than that, I can't see why, he would still. I mean, I got over the flu quicker than he did. I mean, apparently, he got it in Maui, so that's a long time ago. That's like a month ago. Anyway, the one thing I will say about Trey is he's also a very good perimeter defender, probably the best perimeter defender on the team. He's probably not the best all-around defender, because I'd probably give that to Kaluma, but but probably perimeter defender, he's the best. But the reason why Trey made this list is because Jay Billis said at Maui, which shocked me. He said Trey Alexander will be in the NBA one day. And I'm like, okay, I like Trey Alexander, and I think Trey Alexander is a good player, but I would never, ever make that proclamation from what I've seen so far. And I've seen the guy a lot, and right now he's borderline, like he's right on the edge of our, I don't know where we had, I think he's right at 100 out of our top 200.
Sure.
But I feel he's going to fall into the
back half of that.
The back half, if this keeps up. So I would not declare Trey Alexander is mark it down. He's in the NBA. And it was just surprising. I mean, he's
at a minimum, he needs one more year of college.
Oh,
at a minimum.
Yeah.
And that's the time. Like when you start making proclamations like that, and this is just in general, in my opinion, that means you're saying right now.
Yeah.
Like I don't want you that's like cheating to say, oh, give him 4 more years and he could be in the NBA. It's like, well, yeah, okay, sure. I guess if I give anybody more time, they'll get bigger, stronger, you'd like to think. But I'm like, if you're going to put a stamp on somebody, you better be pretty damn confident that they should have they're viable. Maybe they choose not to go, but they
first of all, if I'm going to make
viable.
that statement, I'm going to make it. If I'm going to make that statement on Creighton, I'm going to say Kaluma. I mean, because Kaluma has the archetype.
he has the build,
6'8", muscular, athletic,
defends 5 if he has to.
He can play inside and out, both offensively and defensively. Of course, we could actually probably also put Kaluma on stock falling, because I mean everybody for Creighton's been struggling since Kalkbrenner went down. So and I think part of that, we talked about this, is just the high minutes. The high minutes, they played a killer schedule. So I'm not ready to write anybody off on Creighton. I think they just need their bench to expand a little, and they got to get some home cooking, which they're going to have for the next 3 games, and so forth and so on. All right, so we're going to move on to our game predictions. Drew, Santa's here. Santa Claus.
What? Ho ho ho, ho ho ho. Merry Christmas.
Kyrie kept on saying Santa was real, and now I know it's true because he's here with us today. Wow.
I feel like Santa's a lot better looking than what the tales have been told for the past decades. I don't know. I mean, speaking about myself, since I'm Santa.
Well,
I didn't come in with a big white beard. I feel like I'm surprising a lot of Santa believers out there.
Yeah. Well, you have magical powers, and and obviously you've mastered reversing the aging process. And Santa, as long as you're here, can I ask you for one gift for this Christmas?
Of course.
We have one of our co-hosts, Maverick Swenson, has been missing for a while. and I believe it's because, with the first episode where we did the game predictions, he went 2-5. So I think.
Oh, Santa saw that. Make sure y'all, everyone knows that Santa saw that prediction record whenever he was looking at some of the old scripts, when he was looking at who deserves some coal and whenever he does it.
Exactly. So my Christmas wish is Maverick comes back to the show and if you could somehow magically help him pick some games. Actually, can you pick? We're about to do our Christmas 25 picks of Christmas, which is kind of like the 12 days of Christmas times 2 + 1. Can you help us pick some games this week?
Of course. And you know what? Santa, listen, if just speaking to myself in third person, Santa is not going to go 25-0 this week. Well, in the next couple of weeks, actually. He's not going 25-0, but I can promise you he will not go 2-5. Number one, it's mathematically not possible.
Right.
Number two, he's going to get more than 2 wins. I can promise you that. He's going to get more than 2.
All right. By the way, I think our 25 picks, because we're not going to be here for the next 2 weeks, so we're going all the way out to January 8th. So that's why we have 25 games to pick, which is actually 1/3 the number of bowl games there are this year. Have you guys been watching the bowl games, the matchups? Did you happen to catch that 6-5 South Park A&M versus 7-4 Cartman State in the Ford Pinto Bowl?
I can't even keep up with the bowl games anymore. I gave up a long time ago. I root for Stanford. That's about it at this point. Everyone else.
Did Stanford make a bowl game? Did Stanford make
They did not. So
okay, all right. I'm surprising because it seems like everybody did. But yeah. So did you catch that game, South Park A&M versus Cartman State, Santa?
Santa doesn't watch football. Santa doesn't watch any other sport besides basketball. Santa's pretty ignorant whenever it comes to any other sport. He watched the World Cup. He watched a World Cup game for the first time in like 8 years. So
yeah, and they were actually awesome, by the way.
Yeah, it was a great game. It was really intense.
It was fantastic action. So we're going to start off with a game that's actually probably finishing up right about now. I don't know who's winning or whatever. I don't know if you guys do. If you do, you get a freebie. That's your Christmas present. You're going to make a pick on a game that's almost over, and that's Michigan and North Carolina. And I'm going to start off since I definitely have no idea what's going on, and I'm going to say that I liked North Carolina in this game, and the reason is because I think Baycott is enough to offset. Typically when Michigan plays somebody, they have no one to offset Hunter Dickinson, and I think Baycott can do that. And Carolina has more peripheral weapons. Michigan, for example, doesn't have a point guard, though some people would argue North Carolina doesn't have one either. But I'm going to go with North Carolina in this game. How about you, Santa?
I think it's going to be close. Just looking at the Santa vision. Of course, we know that I have powers. I predict that, I think it's going to go UNC way. I think they're going to score around 80 points, but I think it's going to be a close game. So I think Michigan might score between 73 to maybe 76 points. It's going to be about a 1 to 2 possession game. I agree with Rich. I think that most of the time, no one really can guard Hunter. But UNC has someone, so I think UNC is going to pull this one out. It's going to be real close, though.
Yeah, I'm going to roll UNC here. I talked about them getting jump-starting momentum two shows ago. Brought it up this one. I think that this is the type of win gets them on a 5-game win streak. I'm going to take the Tar Heels here. I think they just have a little too much, and if those pieces hit, Michigan can't keep up.
All righty. So then we're going to move to a rivalry game on the 22nd, interstate rivalry. Illinois at Missouri. Missouri has only lost 1 game. I don't know their exact record, but I think it's 11-1. We talked about them some last week. We were not impressed with them when they matched up against Arkansas, right?
Kansas.
Oh, Kansas, right.
Kansas. They got blasted by Kansas.
Right. So what do you think, Santa?
Yeah, I actually have that in my notes. The only ranked team that they've played, they've got just dismantled. But, I mean, they're putting up 88 points a game as a team. Right. I just think that I still am going to go with Illinois just because, I mean, I believe 2 games ago they played against Texas, and that's also another fast-paced scoring team. They're already kind of in that mindset. So it's a little bit just, I mean, a kind of unfair luck for Missouri because, I mean, I believe they're 4th in college basketball in points per game as a team.
Yeah, well, it didn't look that way against Kansas, though.
No, it did not. And I think it's going to look the exact same way against Illinois. I got Illinois this game.
Drew?
Yeah, I'm taking Illinois. I think Missouri's, we talked about it. I was pretty hard on them. Fraudulent, aggressive, but they've played really nobody. And the one time they played someone, they got absolutely mollywopped.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think this is Illinois, and I wouldn't be shocked if Illinois wins by 15.
Yep. I hear you. Rivalry game, though, could be a little tricky, but I got to go with Illinois.
It's at Missouri, too.
Up until last night, Mississippi State was unbeaten, but they were upset yesterday or not yesterday. I believe that was it yesterday? Yeah, it was yesterday.
It was yesterday.
Yeah,
they lost to Drake.
Now we're all the way up to games played on 12/28. So this is 12/28 game, Alabama at Mississippi State. Drew, who do you got?
I'm going Alabama here. I think Alabama is I think they're a little bit up and down. We know they beat Houston and they lost to my Zags, but I think this team, when they're playing to their peak or close to it, they can beat anyone in the country. They knocked off the number 1 team not that long ago, and they were competitive with the Zags. That was not a walkover game.
Right.
I just think that Alabama has a much higher ceiling than Mississippi State. They are still playing well. It's not like they're playing poor basketball by any stretch. So I think this is going to be Alabama taking it. Mississippi State's got a pretty tough road here. I think they go Alabama and Tennessee next. So I'm taking Bama.
Right. Santa
predicts that this is going to be a present for fans out there that like college basketball, because you have a great defense and you have a fantastic offense with a top 5 prospect and Brandon Miller. I think it's going to be a great game to watch. I'm going to roll with Alabama. But I think it's going to be close. And if things kind of go right for Mississippi State, I wouldn't be surprised if they could pull it out. But for Santa's predictions, for his record, because God knows that we need some wins over here, we're going with the safe pick in Bama.
All right. I have to agree with you both. I think Mississippi State kind of falls in that Missouri category of just not really playing anybody, and not as bad as Missouri's schedule, but still, I don't think Mississippi State is. I think their record's going to slowly decline as they get into real play here. So, and Alabama, as we said, is one of the probably top 4 teams in the country. All right, next, 12:30. Not 12:30 time, December 30th. Miami of Florida at Notre Dame. It's the renewal of the basketball Catholics versus the convicts. Who you got, Santa?
Santa likes Miami, and Santa's liked Miami for a while. I've really liked their guard play for a long time, and I think that Wong, he's averaging about 17 and 5. Give me that all day. I'll take Miami in this game. I think it's I'm probably gonna tune into this game. But I like Miami coming out. Sam likes Miami. I just said the same thing 4 times.
Who you got, Drew?
Yeah, we've talked about Miami a lot recently. I'm very high on this team. I think they're better than the 22nd team in the country. I've spoken highly of their backcourt for over a month now. The reality of it is I just don't think Notre Dame has the ability to contain Isaiah Wong, then Miller, then Pack. They also have to deal with, we're talking about interior presence. Norchad is a legit force in the middle. There are no answer for him. Notre Dame's saving grace is they can't shoot. So this is the type of game where if they get hot, they could keep it more competitive. But I think Miami, top to bottom, is the better team. And I just don't see them having enough perimeter defenders to throw at those guards. And I don't know how they're going to stop Norchad in the middle. The guy's going to get his 15 points, 15 rebounds if he wants it.
That's what it comes down to me. It's going to be Norchad. Omier is going to dominate just like just about every other big has against Notre Dame. I will say Notre Dame looked really flat against Georgia. And usually when a team comes out and plays that flat, you would tend to pick them. But Notre Dame doesn't really have an excuse. They're a very experienced team. I really think this team might be in trouble. I thought for sure they were a lock to get in the tournament, but I don't think so anymore. I gotta agree. We are perfectly agreed so far. By the way, last week, yes. By the way, last week Drew went 6-8. I went 8-6. Drew is now 500. You're sitting at 500, Drew, at the end of the year.
I did miss the first week of games.
You did.
For what
You
it's worth.
did.
I
you
did miss the first 7 games we
Right.
predicted.
And are we going to throw Santa's picks on top of Maverick's record? Santa, do you mind picking for Maverick?
I think that Santa he's in his own category because I can kind of just, I think the reason why we're perfectly aligned is because, my gift is seeing the future. So me I've answered the majority like first. So you're kind of like, oh yeah, he can see the future. He knows what's going on. So, I think he's in his own category,
Speaking in their own category, we're talking. This next game features. This is also a December 30th game. 2 not so good teams, but I thought it was interesting because it's the Money Bates' Eastern Michigan squad playing at South Carolina with Gigi Jackson. So who do you guys got here? Santa, you want to lead us off?
I'm going to Money. I'm gonna go with Money.
Wow.
And both teams, listen, they struggle to defend. They're giving up more points per game than they're scoring as a team. It's going to be a game where Amoni's gonna probably come in and try to go viral by as many and he's gonna probably score as many points as he possibly can. I could see him having 35 this game, and Instagram going crazy with Amoni highlights. Give me EMU. Give me him.
All right. Santa's going with EMU. What do you say, Drew?
Do I have to pick?
If you're into the NBA draft, this is kind of like a must-watch game.
I mean, I'm gonna go with South Carolina almost exclusively on the fact that they at least have some wins on their resume, and they've played at least teams that I can say like they beat Clemson, and Clemson's actually has been solid. They were somewhat competitive with Davidson. They beat Georgetown, who just took UConn, which led UConn for a good chunk of that game that they just matched up in. I'm going to go with just the team that has a slightly stronger resume because they've been able to compete at a slightly higher level. But I think that Santa's right in that I could see Amani try to push it out there and try to go get 30. But
yeah, this will be one of his last chances to probably, be on TV, against a top, 5 conference team.
Powerful, yeah. Well, last time Amani scored 30, he scored 29, and they lost by 30. So
they are not. It's kind of funny because they played Michigan so well.
Yeah,
and yeah, I mean they looked. I was like, wow, this is going to be a team that's going to be competitive in the MAC, but they haven't played. He's been scoring, but they're not winning. All right, so these are New Year's Eve games. We have a bunch. We have UConn at Xavier. Who do you have, Drew?
UConn. They looked a little vulnerable against Georgetown, as I just mentioned, but they still managed to win, and I believe win by double digits. And the team looked a little out of sorts. But I believe Kyle Katera had a big game shooting the ball, and so it just goes to show that the depth of this team. That I mean, they find ways to win, and they're proving that they're gonna do their damnedest to avoid those letdown games, which have kind of plagued some of the other top 10 or the other top teams. So until otherwise, UConn is probably the best team I've seen play still so far this year. I'm gonna go with the Huskies.
Santa?
This is where we're starting to really go, just different paths now, Santa is going with Xavier. And I've liked Xavier for a while now. They have 14. Not 14. They have 4 guys averaging over 14 a game. They pass the ball well. They shoot the ball well. They have offensive depth, and they're versatile on the offensive end of the floor. I'm gonna go with Xavier. Santa's seeing the future. It's gonna be a 15-point game. Put it down.
15-point game.
15-point game. Put it down.
Bold.
Put it down.
Wait, you're saying Xavier's going to win by 50?
No, Xavier's going to win by 15.
1-5. 1-5.
Put it down. Put it down.
All right, Santa. Well, you know what? I am picking Xavier as well, and I'll tell you why. Because UConn has to play Villanova a few days before this. And even though it didn't make our list, because Villanova's on the road at UConn. So I see UConn beating Villanova, but I'm wondering then they have to travel to Xavier on New Year's Eve. I see their first letdown of the season. All right.
For what it's worth, I don't think losing to Xavier would be a letdown. I think Xavier is really good. If they are going to lose,
they are very good. I agree.
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to look at the schedule and the peaks and valleys of emotions and so forth here. All right. So the next game we have Arizona at Arizona State. Arizona State's a tough place to play, but yeah, I think Arizona State just cracked into the top 25 too. Did they not?
They are currently 25 right now. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think.
Who do you got, Drew?
I'm going to take Arizona. Arizona State's been playing really good basketball. It's good for the West Coast. It's good for the Pac-12, but their resume is a little bit light to me. I mean, realistically, their best win is in terms of just an opponent. It might be Creighton, who's been really struggling. Whereas Arizona, they did beat Michigan. They did blow up Michigan. That did happen.
Yeah.
But Arizona's looked really sharp. We talked about Tabellis. I think Tabellis is the best player in this game. I think there's almost a bit of an advantage built in that it is in the same state. So yes, there's home court. It's a tough place to play, but Wildcat basketball is a big brand there. So I can imagine that they will have supporters. And again, it goes back to the fact that I've seen Arizona beat some really, really good teams this year. They've won close ones, like when they beat San Diego State. They handled Indiana pretty thoroughly when they played as well. So I think this team is just a little bit more battle tested and is a little bit more proven as a top 25 opponent or top 25, team.
Yeah. Right.
So I'm gonna go Arizona. But I think this is a good game, and Arizona State, not to take anything away from them, has played really good ball this year.
Yep. What do you got, Santa?
Arizona State has been playing really good ball, and I think they're going to continue it. I think they're going to be playing at home. They're playing Arizona. I think that the mental aspect is going to be there for this game. And I also think that Arizona's defense is a little, they give a lot of points. And I know that they play a significantly harder schedule, but I think Frankie Collins is going to have kind of like his way, and especially playing at home. Santa foresees an Arizona State win.
Wow. I have to side with Drew here. I think Arizona's good, but I think Arizona State's good. I think Arizona is great.
Yeah.
All right. So now we have Baylor at Iowa State. Iowa State's kind of slipped off the radar a little bit after a strong start in the PK tournament. So Baylor at Iowa State. What do you see here, Santa?
Well, Santa loves the 3-guard systems that teams run, and he loves Baylor's 3-guard system. I'm going to go with Baylor. The combination of Cryer, George, and Flagler.
Flagler.
Excuse me. Santa is rough on pronunciations. A little bit different than Maverick. Maverick's all right, but Santa's different game. Yeah, I like the 3-guard system, and I think it's an issue for anyone to guard. I know that Iowa State's a pretty good defense, but
very good defense.
Yeah, I still think just any defense in general, whether it's elite or it's average, a 3-guard system with their shot creation, and especially Baylor's ability. I mean, you got a 52% 3-point shooter in Flagler. It's tough. It's a tough guard for any defense. So. I'll take Baylor. I'll take Baylor on this one.
All right. How about you, Drew?
Yeah, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go with Iowa State here. I think they're at home. Defense is kind of their calling card. We've discussed that Baylor's had some struggles, like with Cryer. If he's on 100%, I'm gonna go Iowa State. I just think that while they've kind of fallen off, and maybe top 25 building was a little bit ambitious for them. This is a team that outside of that Iowa blowout when they got blown out there, and UConn. I mean, they beat St. John's, who's been good. This team beat North Carolina. They beat Villanova pretty handily. They've got some wins on this resume that kind of speak to me. It's hard when you look at blowouts because how much stock you put in. I mean, you lose by 20, it matters, but it's also like it's just a bad day, and UConn's running through everybody. So I think this team's going to be at home. This is their first big game in probably close to 2 weeks since the Iowa blowout. So I think they're going to come. They're going to be ready to defend. And, Baylor with the 3-guard system, especially if Cryer's not 100%, they can get a little bit sloppy. They can get a little bit turnover prone. And that plays in Iowa State's hands. So I'm going to go with Iowa State.
Yep. This is a tough one, but I'm going to ride with Baylor. I'm going to agree with Santa. Iowa State, they're what the guys who score for them, it's they really don't have a go-to scorer, and
Right.
their most adept scores are just totally erratic. So it's hard for me to pick them. It's just is. So I'm gonna go with Baylor, even though Baylor has not really impressed me this year. All right, next game we have Marquette. This is still a New Year's Eve game. Marquette at Villanova. This will follow the UConn game, which we didn't pick. What do you see here, Drew?
This one's hard because, obviously we mentioned that, since Whitmore's return, I believe Villanova's 4-0, 5-0. They haven't lost.
4-0, yeah.
4-0. And they've definitely looked a lot better. Now, I'm sure an NBA level prospect, 5-star guy, that kind of injection always helps. But Marquette's been playing really well. I know they did just lose, and I think was it double overtime? Overtime? They lost an overtime game.
The score was, I don't know if it was double, but the score was in the hundreds. So
Yeah,
I assume it had to be at least 2 overtimes.
Yeah, so they just lost in overtime at Providence. But this is another team that we saw what they did to Baylor, and I know that's a while ago, but they've also managed some other good wins on the resume. They crushed Notre Dame. They beat Creighton pretty substantially. They gave Purdue a very good game, and Purdue's also been running through people. So I'm going to go Marquette here, just because when I'm looking at Nova's 4-game win streak, it's not overly. They didn't really play anyone super impressive, so it's like you get a good injection of talent. The last game I remember watching Nova play was against Oregon, where they lost, and Oregon's not very good this year. They're okay. And also, I think that Nova's got to play St. John's, then at Connecticut, then Marquette. That's a tough 3-game stretch.
Yes.
So I wouldn't be surprised if they're a bit gassed, afterwards, and they go down to Marquette.
All right. What do you think, Santa?
Yeah, I've been debating this one ever since I decided to go through and decide my predictions. So I'm going to just go with a gut feeling right now, and I'll just go with Marquette. There's really not a reason. It's just a gut feeling for Santa. Sometimes you just got to roll with it.
Yeah.
And for me, it's gotta go with I'm going to go with Marquette. Usually, I would usually go the talent route, and especially if we have a guy like Whitmore, I usually would go that route. But kind of like Drew was saying, it's not exactly too impressive. So I'm going to go Marquette, but I don't know. I'm still right there. All right.
Yes, I think it's a true toss up. I'm going to play out this whole scenario. I'm going to say Villanova is going to go up to UConn, and they're going to get it handed to them. And I think they're going to be probably embarrassed. And then I think they're going to come home. And now Marquette has had their number a little bit. Marquette plays a kind of frenetic style, and they particularly have more athleticism than Villanova. But I think Villanova is going to kind of get shell-shocked in UConn, and then they're going to kind of bounce back in a close one and eke out a win over Marquette. All right, UNLV went down over the weekend to who beat UNLV?
USF, the Dons.
Right. USF beat UNLV, knocked them from the undefeated ranks. And so in this last New Year's Eve game here, we have San Diego State at UNLV.
I will take San Diego State here, and I think this is based on I just believe San Diego State to be better. They have some legitimately impressive wins on their resume. They beat Ohio State, which is a better win than I think UNLV has, period. And, you look at their losses. They lost to St. Mary's in a relatively close game. St. Mary's is a very good team. They lost to Arkansas. We've all talked highly about them. Arizona, we just talked highly about them. So I look at their 3 losses and go, all 3 of those teams are highly ranked, or a team like St. Mary's is probably even on the bubble. There's people that, have definitely given them some also ranked votes. And UNLV, on the other hand, hasn't really played anybody. I mean, their best win up to this loss might have been beating Dayton early in the season when we thought Dayton was going to be, much better than they are before they got all injured.
Dayton didn't have Michi Johnson.
Yeah.
For that game, or not Malachi
Smith.
Malachi Smith, right?
Yeah. So yeah, I just think San Diego's better, and this is going to be the first team that I think UNLV is going to play where there's actually a decent talent gap.
Yep.
And I think San Diego State wins this one.
What do you got, Santa?
Everything points to San Diego State, right? Everything, but not for Santa. Santa's going to go with UNLV. He's going with UNLV. I think that again, and here we're going with this 3-guard lineup thing. And I know that I put a little bit more emphasis than most people with the shot creation, especially in the college game. It's a little bit different than anywhere else. But their 3 guards are also really good on defense as well. So I think that's going to be a key for this game. I think it's either going to be a blowout for San Diego State or it's going to be a close win. That's what I see. I'm going with close win. Okay.
All right. I agree. It's going to be a 3-game sweep. I like San Diego State in this one too. I'm not really buying into UNLV at this point. All right. So we have this has become a heated rivalry since Hunter Dickinson arrived in town. He's a Maryland native, and he made it very clear the first time he played at Maryland that he wasn't happy that they didn't recruit him, and that almost turned into a brawl. And ever since then, it's been nothing but bad blood between Maryland and Michigan. So who you have here, Santa, between Maryland and Michigan in this new rivalry game?
Michigan. I have Michigan for this game. Just like we talked about before with Baycott defending Dickinson. I don't know if Maryland has anyone. You can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think they have anyone to hold him.
They do in Julian Reese. He's a solid big, but I still think Dickinson will get his own. But
and I also think that Jet Howard's gonna, he's gonna also be a key here. He's probably gonna put up his regular 15 to 18, and that's going to be a key difference here. I don't know about the bad blood. I don't know about the rivalry, but I like Michigan regardless of any of that, even though I know it's at Michigan, so it's going to be treated a little bit differently.
Yeah.
Regardless of that. So like Michigan.
I agree.
Yeah, I'm taking Michigan. Maryland's lost 3 in a row now at this point, so I think some of the I guess, shine of their early season success, not discrediting it, but has worn off a little bit, especially after that UCLA game was ugly. That was one of the uglier games I've seen this year. I think Hunter Dickinson is going to be the best player on the court, which is always a plus. It's at home, which is a plus. And the reality of it is Michigan, their 3 losses this year are to Kentucky, Virginia, Arizona State, all ranked opponents. If they lose tonight against North Carolina, their 4th loss will be against a ranked opponent. They are due for a ranked win, and I do believe that Maryland, out of the teams they played, would be the worst. They're probably a little bit better than Arizona State, maybe overall. I know the rank it stands, but I'd probably take Maryland. But Maryland is definitely a winnable game for them. It's going to be at home. Again, if there's bad blood, Hunter Dickinson's the best player. I think this is going to be the first kind of real big win for Michigan this year.
Right. And Jet Howard's probably the second best player.
And Jet Howard, but yeah.
So, I got to go with Michigan, too. Mississippi, that was a New Year's Day game, by the way. Now we're all the way up to January 3rd. Mississippi State at Tennessee. What do you got, Drew?
I'm taking Tennessee. Again, we talk Mississippi State. I'm seeing some fool's gold here. Their resume is very, very weak. Look, Tennessee has had a lot of struggles this year. For a team I picked to get into the Final Four, they haven't looked like that. But I think this is going to be a game where it just boils down to talent and experience. Tennessee has better players. Tennessee knows how to win ugly. Tennessee defends. I would have a hard time at home seeing Tennessee losing this game against a team that's kind of padded their season so far. So I'm taking the Vols.
Agree. What do you think, Santa?
Just like before,
Santa.
Everything points to Tennessee. Everything. but not to Santa. Santa's going with Mississippi State. And let me tell you why. Because ever since the second game that I watched Tennessee, they have left a bad taste in my mouth. I don't like watching them. I don't like the team. They shoot terribly. Their top 5 players, I believe their top 5 scorers, all like 4 of them shoot below 38% from the field. You're not going to win with that. And I understand the defense, but I'm telling you, ever since the second game, how bad they play whenever I watch them, I have been keeping up with them. I'm picking Mississippi State. I'm doing it. I'm going on the limb. These are the type of games that Santa needs. These are the type of games that Santa needs. Right here.
I had no idea Santa smoked crack.
Yeah, Santa's be smoking crack. But once Mississippi State's win, then it's not going to be crack. It's going to be life. That's what it's going to be.
What was that game that Tennessee was so bad? It was.
I can't remember it either.
I can't. I'd have to look back, but you don't. Most of the games they can't shoot straight. However, they just got done playing probably the best offensive team in the country. They kept it close all throughout. They're going to be at home for this one. Mississippi State doesn't really. I mean, Tulu Smith is their best player, but Tennessee probably has two or three bigs that are just as talented as he is. It might be like 51-50, but Tennessee wins. All right, now we have an interesting game, and that's Texas Tech is no one's been talking about that much, but they've been pretty hot of late, and Kansas will come to town.
Give me Kansas, and maybe that makes me sound hypocritical as I've been hard on them, but I have a very hard time buying stock on a team that just whooped Jackson State and Houston Christian. That means nothing to me, especially for a team, if I'm not mistaken, was ranked coming into this season.
Yes.
Yeah. So when they've played, the 2 good teams they played this year were Ohio State, which they lost, and Creighton, which they also lost. Beating up Nicholls State, Georgetown, Jackson State, Houston Christian, Louisiana Tech, Texas Southern. Everyone beats up Texas Southern. I feel bad. They seem to be on every single resume for every tournament team every year. I just feel bad for them. But yeah, I'm not really impressed with Texas Tech. Again, I have not been overly impressed with Kansas, and I've been vocal about that. But I think Kansas is just a better team with better players, the better coach. They're going to win this game.
Right. And I don't know exactly, but Daniel Bacho, Texas Tech center, he's I think he's missed a couple games. I don't remember what it is, but he might not even be back for this. So to me, he's probably their best player or close to it. So what do you think, Santa?
Santa agrees with Drew. He really likes what Drew said. I think he hit all the points. He's going to go with Kansas for this game.
So am I, because I'm tired of going against Kansas and losing. So
we all say that, and we're all going to put a loss on our records, man.
All right, so now we have Duke at NC State. I would assume by now Duke will get their 2 freshman stars back. But right, they didn't play last night, but this is almost over a week from now on January 4th. What do you think, Santa? Duke or NC State? At NC State.
I think the key right there, what you just said, is at NC State. And I'm going with NC State. I'm pulling out a win for NC State for this game, even though the freshmen might be back if what Rich is saying is true.
I'm just taking a guess.
How many games has Dariq played since he's been back?
4 or 5?
4 or 5.
Yeah, he's still in the recovery mode.
Yeah. He's definitely not up to speed. Yeah.
And especially with the flu, Rich, I had the flu. Right. I was horrible. Right. I mean, I'm still not back.
Yeah, I could tell.
Yeah, I can't even imagine what Dariq is feeling over there, and he has to play at NC State. I'm going NC State with this game.
All righty. All right. What do you got, Drew?
Yeah, I'm gonna take NC State here. They've been close against some good teams. They were close against Miami. They were close against Kansas earlier this year. I think they're at home. I have not seen enough from Duke to really inspire me, especially if they're going to be away from home. Who knows what the freshmen look like? Maybe they come back, but they might not. Maybe they've had a really bad bout of the flu and they've lost weight and they're struggling. I don't know. I'm having a hard time buying stock with this Duke team. NC State's been playing pretty good basketball. Again, they've only got 3 losses, 2 of them to 2 teams that I'm very high on. Or one team I'm high on in Miami, another team in Kansas who, despite the odds and despite my slander, has been playing well. So I'm going to give NC State the upset.
I am going to make it a clean sweep and go with NC State in the upset. Definitely not impressed with what I saw from Duke last night. NC State's got three very good guards. So yeah, I'm gonna roll with that, and they definitely have more experience. So next one is tough one, if you ask me. TCU is quietly climbed back into the top 25, and they will be at Baylor on January 4th. What do you think, Santa?
Listen, we've talked about Baylor before, and as much as it pains me to say it, I'm still going to go with Baylor. I've seen the 3-guard lineup too many times. I will never pick against it ever again. Sorry, y'all. Going with Baylor.
Huh. What do you think, Drew?
This is a tough one. I mean, they have a really tough stretch here. They go Texas Tech, Baylor, Iowa State, at Texas. So they're going to be playing in the middle of a really tough just stretch of games. But I like what I've seen from TCU. I'm not really sold on what I've seen from Baylor. I'm going to take TCU. I know it's a bit of an upset, but I'm going to take TCU. I think this is going to be a good game, but I'm going to roll with the Horned Frogs.
Yeah, I think I have to agree with Santa. This is true. It's tough, but I'm going to go with the home team. So yeah. All right. So the next one we have is the top rank Purdue Boilermakers at Ohio State. What do you say, Drew?
I'm just going to keep this one simple. Purdue's playing like one of the top 2-3 teams in the country. Ohio State's been solid. Purdue's been better. I'm taking Purdue.
Yeah, I'm going Purdue too, but it really hurts because I love our guy Zed Key, man. That guy was awesome.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
But it should be pretty easily Purdue.
Yeah, I just, Zed's only about 6'9".
Yeah.
And they don't, they have a freshman. I don't know if you saw the North Carolina game, but Zed got in a little bit of foul trouble, and I forget the freshman's name, and he's like a 4-star guy. And a very good shot blocker, but he fouled out. So I just think Edie's going to foul them both out, and that's going to be all she wrote. So I got to go clean sweep Purdue. All right. So Indiana at Iowa on January 5th, and I'll give you not a Keegan Murray update, a Chris Murray update. I heard there's a chance he will be back on New Year's Eve. I believe they play Northwestern then. Yeah. So I heard there's a decent chance he'll be back then, but it's not official. So we could be looking at an Iowa team without Chris Murray, but I would say, there's a good chance he will be playing here.
I took Indiana last time and they did me dirty, but Iowa's been really inconsistent. Oh, man. I'm going to take Indiana. I think they're going to have the best player on the court. I have a really hard time with this one because both teams have been extremely inconsistent. Indiana's 2 and 3 in their last 5. Iowa has literally, since that Clemson win a while ago, I think close to a month ago now, they've literally just alternated wins and losses. And so I'm going to just say Indiana because I think Trayce Jackson-Davis is the best player. And if there's a chance Chris Murray doesn't play, that pushes it more in Indiana's favor. And even if he does, maybe he's not 100 up to speed, especially if he comes back, close to game time. He could be a little bit rusty. So I'm gonna take Iowa, but Indiana, but this is a tough one for me. I don't feel strongly either way.
Santa?
I don't feel strongly either way either, and I'm still rolling with Indiana just because they have the best player on the floor. Solely it. Couldn't agree more with Drew, but I don't really feel any sort of way towards this game going to Indiana.
Yeah, I think I have to agree because if I knew Murray was playing, I think I'd take Iowa. But not knowing, I'm going to say Indiana. All right, clean sweep there. All right, next one, January 7th. Now this is the games. We were talking in our preseason special. Boy, I can't wait for Creighton. I can't wait for Creighton at UConn. And now Creighton's just hit a huge skid. But we have January 7th. We have Creighton at UConn. Who you got, Santa?
I want to remind everyone that Santa sees a future before I say this. Okay, I just want to say that because I'm making the surprise thing. I'm going with Creighton. I'm going to go with them. They've been on the skid, but every single team has to get through it at some point. We talked about it with Villanova with Cam Whitmore coming back, but Creighton, they need to make a statement eventually if they want to be able to compete. We're going with Creighton. We see the future. Okay, I know that UConn. I know UConn is UConn right now. All right, I know how they look. Okay, but every there's it's college basketball. It is what it is. There's always going to be something going on. So we're going with Creighton with this game. We're going with Creighton.
All right, Santa is emphatically going with Creighton, Drew.
Yeah, I like Creighton. I was very high on them, but I still have to stick with UConn because UConn has shown me time and time again. Whereas Creighton has shown me now that I just think that UConn not playing their best can win. Creighton not playing their best in this game will lose by 25.
Take the chance. Take the chance.
So I'm gonna go with UConn because I still think Creighton at their best from what I've seen. The way I look at this, Creighton at their best is not better than UConn at their best, and that's if UConn at their worst is better than Creighton at okay to bad.
Yeah.
So I think UConn as it stands has just shown a willingness to gut out wins. Like last night against Georgetown, I watched that game. They found a way, or they've shown ways to be a buzzsaw and blast teams like Alabama by 20. So
yep. I if I knew Kalkbrenner was playing, I might think about it because this is kind of like a must win, and you can see that they'd be like turn their season around. But I don't know for 100%. I would assume he's going to be back by this game.
right.
But even if he's back, it is at UConn. It is in Connecticut, and so boy, oh boy. And the only thing I will say that's going in Santa's favor by going with Creighton is UConn's going to play Villanova. Then they're going to have to play Xavier. But I picked the upset of Xavier over UConn. So if Xavier upsets UConn, UConn's not losing 2 in a row. So I got to go with UConn here. All right, next game. Kentucky at Alabama. That should be fun.
Going to be a lot of 5-star, a lot of athletes. I'm taking Alabama. I am not a Calipari guy. I think that roster has just got too many question marks night in, night out. They're not consistent. Alabama has at least shown an ability to play with the best, to beat the best. And when they lose in a competitive fashion. They play good, athletic, high-energy defense. I'm just not sold on Kentucky. That's as simple as that. I love Casson Wallace. He's my favorite freshman. He's been playing great. Oscar Tshiebwe's Oscar Tshiebwe, but even some of Oscar's luster is kind of worn off for me. I think at this point, the one-trick pony aspect of his game is kind of shown. He's a monster. He's a beast. He's going to get his double-double, but at this point, they need to do more than that, and I just don't know if this team's capable. Alabama is, so I'm taking Bama.
Yep. Santa?
We were so high on Kentucky, too. I believe we had them 4th in our preseason ranking.
Preseason poll, I think we had them 3rd.
Yeah.
They're loaded. They just aren't putting it together.
Yeah. And it's rough. And I'm gonna go with Alabama too. If anyone here is interested in the NBA draft, tune into this game. You're gonna get it's gonna be very exciting, a lot of prospects. But as far as the actual win goes, I think it'll go Alabama's way.
Yeah. Kentucky's biggest win this season's Michigan, in London. And their other, they lost to Michigan State, lost to Gonzaga, and they lost to UCLA. And I can't see them. Do they have the talent to win at Alabama? Yeah, but I got to go with Alabama at home. All right, next game. Interesting. Good game. Wisconsin at Illinois.
Oh, this one's good. I'll take Wisconsin. I think this is another tough one. The Badgers have played really good basketball this year. Again, They got 2 losses, one to Kansas, who highly ranked team, top 10, and Wake Forest in a game that was a 1-possession game, and Wake Forest did just knock off Duke. So I'm going to take the flyer here and go with Wisconsin. Again, not super confident either way. Illinois could very easily win this game. They're at home. They have a good resume too. This might just be more of a kind of underdog flyer pick here, but this game is going to be really good.
Yep. Santa?
I love the underdogs. I love picking the underdogs, especially when it's just unprecedented. But my biggest thing is Wisconsin just can't defend the rim, and I think that's going to be. I think that'll be the deciding factor. So I'll go Illinois here and at home too. Yeah, give me Illinois.
Yep, I agree. I like Illinois at home. All right. We got Michigan on the list again. This time they're on the road at Michigan State. Boy, there's a team we haven't talked about for a while. Malik Hall is still out, but last time we heard he was supposed to come back around New Year's Eve. So theoretically, he should be back for this game.
It's hard for me to deal in theoretical as Michigan State. I respect the fact that Izzo always schedules a hell of a preseason for them. They've played a lot of good teams, but they have some ugly losses on here. They got beat by Notre Dame pretty bad, and Notre Dame's been less than impressive. They lost to Northwestern. They did lose to Alabama. They did lose to the Zags, but again, I think Michigan has been kind of right there against a lot of these opponents. They've been so close. They almost took down Kentucky. Like I said, they don't have a ranked win yet, and I know Michigan State's not ranked, but I'm going to go Michigan here. This is a tough one to pick because I think overall Michigan State, top to bottom, I think has more talent, but I think Michigan has maybe the top 2 close. Maybe Hunter's going to be the best player. I think Jet's going to be in that conversation in that kind of 2, 3, 4 range. So I'm going to go with Michigan.
Alrighty, Santa, who do you got?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a good game as well, but I'm still going to go with Michigan. And we've talked about Michigan so much, y'all do not need any more of my analysis. So I'm going to go with Michigan based on almost everything that we've said. Even though I think Michigan State's a good team.
Alrighty, again, I'm going with the home team in what should be a tight game. I think talent-wise, they're close. Both teams are having trouble with point guard play. And certainly, Michigan has the advantage at center. But I also think they have the potential to overcome their problems at point guard, where Michigan doesn't really have much of an option right now. All right, next game. Another January 7th game. We got 4 games left, and then that'll wrap it up. We have Xavier at Nova.
I think I'm going to go with Nova. I think Nova's going to be at home. They are playing a lot better when you look. Like I said, I do think that's going to come to kind of a halt because they do have Connecticut and then Marquette. But I think Xavier is going to be coming off a game against UConn, which is probably going to take quite a bit out of them. They also have St. John's in there too, who's been good. So I think this is just going to favor the home team. I think both these teams are playing a very tough stretch of basketball. They both have UConn/Marquette/St. John's and each other all in a 4-game cycle. So this is just going to be more of a matter of the fact that I think the home team might just have a little bit more in the tank. But I like both of these teams. I like Xavier more, but I think Nova's just got the advantage at home, and they're going to not have to have just played UConn.
Right.
I'm going to go the opposite. I'm going to go opposite way. I'm going to go Xavier. And just because they have a lot of depth with their offense. I mean, like I said before, they have 4 guys averaging over 14. It might take a little bit out of them, but it's not like they have to rely on the same 1 to 2 guys. They have multiple guys they can go to on the offensive end who are efficient as well. So I'm gonna go Xavier, but I think it'll probably be pretty close. But I'm still gonna go Xavier. Xavier, you better not fail me. That's second time now today.
I have to agree with Santa, and the reason I do is because Xavier's got 2 bigs that can punish Villanova on the inside, and Villanova has Dixon, and he's definitely not a rim protector. Villanova in a lot of ways mimics Notre Dame. Relies a lot on the 3, doesn't have a lot of size, has a lot of good shooters. or theoretically has a lot of good shooters. But yeah, I'm going to just go with Xavier and their size and say that's going to present problems. And I'll probably be saying that a lot when it comes to talking about Villanova or Notre Dame this year. So next up, Oregon, who are you ready for this, folks? If you didn't notice, Oregon lost to Utah Valley at home last night against Utah, who was cooking, and then they went up to BYU and got thumped. So what do we got here? Oregon at Utah. One of these teams, this is kind of a key game because one of these teams has to kind of fall into being maybe the fourth team in the Pac-12. And
I'm going to take Utah here. Utah, they did lose to BYU, but they were rolling before then. They have a very solid, convincing win over Arizona earlier this year, which is a much better win than anything that's on Oregon's schedule. Oregon's best win is probably Villanova, but I believe that's before Whitmore was back. So you beat a team without their best player. I think Utah's just a better team. Oregon's been really inconsistent all year. I like Nafali Dante.
They're still banged up. They're still
banged up. I really like Dante. Will Richardson can, he had a big game, but they still lost. I think Nafali Dante had 17 and 15. I mean, you can't really ask more than Richardson giving you 26 and 4 and Dante giving you 17 and 15. And you still lost to Utah Valley. I'm sorry. I'm going to have to go with Utah. Better, not much of a better resume, but they have more consistent, have the better win, and they don't have any major letdown.
And they're home. What do you say, Santa?
Give me Utah. Give me Utah's offense and their spacing.
Yep. I agree. It's a clean sweep going with Utah. All right, 2 games left, both on January 7th. This should be a fun one. Arkansas at Auburn.
I've been on the Arkansas train. I know they've lost Travion Brazil, which hurts because that takes away a legitimate size, legitimate double threat. But I just think the talent, I'm not really sold on Auburn. I haven't been overly impressed. I still have questions about the guard play. It worries me that their best player, Flanagan, is, not 100% what he was. So if arguably your most consistent player isn't even as good as he used to be due to injury, that worries me when you're going against a team that's loaded with NBA talent. We're talking 2 kids that are for sure going to be in the top 10 as it stands, probably top 12 at the worst. Give me Arkansas. Not sold on Auburn.
Yeah, it's tough to compete with the talent that Arkansas has. I'm going to also go with Arkansas. Right with you on that one.
Yeah, Auburn is a super tough place to play. I mean, it is incredibly loud there. But yeah, I agree. Auburn hasn't put it together. The other night when they lost at USC, they were just kicking the ball all over the place. There's talent there, but they're really sloppy. Arkansas can be sloppy at times too, but I'm gonna have to agree with you and a clean sweep and go with Arkansas. All right, last game, and it is probably the more fun thing to say is, will New Mexico still be undefeated on January 7th when they take the court? They're one of only 3 undefeated teams left in the country. And on January 7th, UNLV comes to town to play at New Mexico. What do you got, Drew?
I'm going to take New Mexico. If I want to keep it super simple, it's just a transitive property. New Mexico beat USF beat UNLV. So therefore, New Mexico must be better. All joking aside, though, New Mexico's undefeated for a reason. They've actually looked really good. And while they haven't played the toughest schedule, they do have St. Mary's on their resume. St. Mary's is a very underrated team and always competitive. I'm not a big USF guy, despite having gone there, but they beat them. And when you're undefeated, that means something. And neither team has really played anybody. So I'm going to take the team that played the better competition and played them tougher, and it's at home. Give me New Mexico.
Sound logic. By the way, I think Santa's falling asleep on us. Santa, who you got for this final game?
Oh, Santa's not falling asleep. Because you know what? That sound logic that comes in It doesn't come into the future of Santa. We're gonna go with UNLV. We're doubling down.
Wow.
We're doubling down. We're doubling down.
All right. So Santa definitely I don't know Santa's Mrs. Santa's number, but someone better tell her to get him his meds.
Miss Santa doesn't exist.
Kyrie says he does. But all right, I'm going to make my pick here. I say New Mexico is still undefeated in this game. They stay undefeated, and they lose the following week at San Diego State. So that wraps up our predictions. And we did answer already one of the mailbag, and we got one mailbag question before we go. And how would you say this name? Is it Ayad? He says, just heard your take on Memphis. Wow. And this is written to me, by the way. Wow. Respectfully disagree, Rich. They have two of the best one-on-one players in the country. And while they cannot shoot a lick, they are long and athletic. I could be wrong. And what he's saying was, I said last week, after watching Memphis beat Auburn, I said Memphis wouldn't make the tournament. They just didn't measure up to previous Memphis teams, and I said I'd buy anybody a beer if they'd make the tournament. Well, and Ayad disagrees. I'm going to let you guys take your take on it, and then I will tell you. He says Ayad obviously thinks Memphis is a tournament team and is pretty talented. You guys have any thoughts here?
Can I see them making the tournament? Oh, sure, maybe. I mean, they don't have a really great resume. I mean, the Auburn win is going to be their best win of the season, most likely, when it's all said and done. You know, conference play starting up. They don't play the most intimidating conference. You know, Cincinnati's a little bit down. Wichita's down. I mean, they do get Houston, obviously, but Houston's actually the very back end of their schedule. They don't play Houston until the middle of February. So I could see this team, because they're long, because they're athletic, because they do have some really good just scoring options in Davis, Kendrick Davis,
and DeAndre
Williams. I could see this team rattling off quite a few wins in a row. So making the tournament, I don't think it's out of the question, but going anywhere in the tournament, I'm not overly impressed with this team in terms of just as a unit. I mean, Davis basically is the driving force for this team entirely. His offense, he's giving you 20 points and 5 assists. You know, the only other guy in this team who really has any playmaking is Lomax, but, you know, he's a horrible shooter from three, relatively small guard. He's 6 feet, maybe 6'1". So anytime you have a team that has a legitimate 20-point scorer, Williams, who's another 15-point guy, and is long and athletic, there's always a threat.
Yeah, and DeAndre Williams is a double-double guy.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a threat because, athleticism can always rattle even the most disciplined team. Sometimes if I'm just bigger, faster, stronger. This team was better last year, but we saw them give the Zags.
They've been better for the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, but I'm just saying we saw them give Gonzaga, who's a fundamentally sound, move the ball offensive team, gave them fits. So any team can run into a team that's like this and struggle, but I just don't think top to bottom this team has the talent to make up for the lack of they're not so big, so strong, so fast to make up for the lack of basketball talent. Yeah. But I will say this, they could make the tournament. That wouldn't shock me.
When I was watching them against Alabama, after I made that statement, I said, you know what? This team is better than I thought they were.
Yeah.
But I don't think their athleticism or their length comes close to what they've had over the previous
during alone
3 or 4
Wiseman.
years. Yeah. I don't think it comes close.
No.
I think they have two good players, and that's it. The one thing, and Penny has said this, that the chemistry on this team is very good. And the chemistry in previous years was not good because he had a bunch of one and dones, a bunch of egos. And this team is also very old. I mean, Williams is 26 years old.
He's my age.
Lomax is probably 24. I mean, we're talking, there's a lot of 23, 22, 23, 24, and all the way up to Williams at 26. So yeah, and their conference is weak. I mean, weak.
Very weak.
You know, maybe 2 teams from the American get in, and Memphis would probably be the leading candidate. Central Florida has a shot. Cincinnati has a shot. I think Tulane has a shot. Temple has a shot. But this conference is not getting more than 2 teams in.
No way.
So yes, they might make the tournament because Memphis could have a tremendous record because they're not going to be playing anybody.
Yep.
But there's also a good chance, and we've seen it with Memphis before. They've had a good record, and they've been excluded from the tournament because their resume doesn't add up. And yeah, I don't know how much that Auburn victory is going to really matter.
This team cannot afford any major letdown losses.
No.
They need to be competitive with Houston. Not saying they need to win, but they need to be competitive, and they better not lose to like a UCF. East Carolina.
Well, they better not lose at least to the bottom half. The Southern Florida's the SMU.
The Southern Florida, exactly. SMU.
Tulane's, or Tulsa's, excuse me. Tulane's pretty good.
They are not allowed to lose more than 2. These are excluding Houston. Outside of Houston, if they lose more than 2-3 games, they're probably in trouble.
All right.
Especially if Auburn trends down throughout the season and looks less and less like they were 11 when they beat them, but they've been trending down. If Auburn continues to trend down, let's say Auburn even gets unranked at some point by the end of the season, they're going to look at this and go, your best win is against a team that's not even ranked anymore.
Right. And I think Auburn ultimately, when it all shakes out, they're going to be somewhere in between, say, like 20 and 30,
30, yeah.
Agreed. And so, yeah. So I'm going to double down. I think there is a chance they could still make it. I definitely say they're not as talented, but yeah, the chemistry thing might be working in their favor. The experience thing might be working in their favor. And of course they should get a lot of wins because the conference is really poor. Right. But I'm going to double down and tell Ayad that I will buy him a case of beer instead of buying him with just 1 beer if Memphis makes the tournament. So there you go. All right, gentlemen, do you have any parting thoughts for our Christmas special?
Merry Christmas to everybody.
Prayers for the Golden State Warriors because they're struggling right now. I'm sorry, Drew. Prayers up to them, man. Golden State Warriors need everything over there, man.
Hey, positive vibes. I do have to run, guys. I've got a dinner reservation I got to get to.
All right,
so
Drew.
I do have to take off.
All right, Drew, we're gonna miss you. Hopefully you'll be back soon.
Oh, we'll be in touch.
All right.
All right, Drew.
All right, gentlemen.
All right. I want to thank everyone for their questions and listening. I want to thank, by the way, folks, if you want to send in questions, please email them to admin@hoopsprospects.com. That's ADMIN. I want to thank all of our listeners, our 2 guests, Drew Pember, Keyontae Johnson. We'll be back the week of January 8th. 2 weeks from now with another stock report, a special guest, maybe 2 and more. And Santa, I think, will not be back, but Maverick will be. And so that'd be good to have him back. And so that's it, folks. Happy holidays. Look, Maverick, say Merry Christmas.
Oh, Mookie, hello.
At least Santa has it.